Marty Supreme. I feel like a lot of you have heard this name recently because Timothée Chalamet has done such an incredible job at generating hype for it, most notably by shouting it out multiple times on a very popular song where he collabed with an artist who a lot of people had a tinfoil condom conspiracy cooked up that he was actually this UK rapper, and then in order to dispel the rumors, he collabed with the rapper and then dropped a verse where he shouted out Marty Supreme a few times. He was on the Las Vegas Sphere shouting out Marty Supreme. And I knew nothing about this movie before all of this from Timothée Chalamet, so I went into it pretty blind. The only thing I knew about it is that ping pong was there. Boy howdy, let me tell you what, I do love me some ping pong. I'm pretty nasty at it. I can clap cheeks on the table. So that was pretty exciting as like a core component of this movie, but it's where the extent of my knowledge of Marty Supreme stopped. I just bought into the hype train because I was really entertained by Timothée Chalamet's promotions for it. So I just got back from it. It was good. Like, very good, actually. So I was talking about it on stream, and I made a comparison saying I got similar vibes watching Marty Supreme as I did to Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. And turns out they're from the same director, which makes sense. Safdie has truly mastered the art of capturing chaos and stress and carrying that momentum throughout an entire movie without ever letting up. It is unrelenting. So Marty Supreme follows Marty Mauser, who is a narcissist douchebag. He is an absolute scumbag who uses people till they have no more things to offer him in order to elevate himself to where he believes he needs to be, which is displaying his talents, capitalizing off of his God-given ability to bend people over on ping pong tables. He is an extremely talented table tennis player, and as such, he wants to be the face of the sport that he believes is going to take over the U.S. He is uniquely positioned, as he believes, to be the best possible candidate to make table tennis even bigger than it already is. And what a fucking journey it is. There's not a ton of ping pong played in here, though when it is played, I was pretty hyped, kind of wiggling in my seat excitedly. I love ping pong, so that was fun to watch. But that's not the most important part of this. It really is a exploration of one man's fucking unhinged journey. I could never expect where the movie goes next. So, like, even from the very beginning, it immediately puts you in the middle of, like, stressful arguments. Not to the point where it becomes incomprehensible, where, like, they're just talking over each other and yelling, so you don't even know what the fuck's being said anymore. It sounds like Charlie Brown's parents. They do such a good job at capturing this chaos of, like, a real argument where someone's trying to, like, convince someone of something while the other person's trying to stand their ground. So unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. And it works really well. And it usually ends with Marty Mauser getting what he wants out of that person. Whether it's, you know, some kind of partnership or some kind of handout. He's very, very good at manipulating people, either for money or whatever, for his own personal gain. But he's also just so lost in his sauce, huffing his own farts, that he will also step over the line more often than not, where he will push the person away and ruin a good opportunity for himself. Like, you always expect him to have, like, this come to Jesus moment where he, like, simmers down, calms down, and he never does. It's always just over the top, extreme. He is just such an asshole. But the film isn't just Marty Mauser using people. Like I said, you go on a crazy fucking journey that takes twists and turns I never saw coming. Like, there's this whole subplot where he goes to a hotel, and Tyler, the Creator's here, which shocked the fuck out of me. Like I said, I knew nothing about this movie, so when Tyler, the Creator, shows up, I probably would have been less surprised if I saw my own dad in this film. I didn't see that coming at all. Tyler, the Creator, does like a really good job of playing with Marty Mauser here as like his cohort, where they scam together and they're good friends. And while Marty's in the middle of turmoil where he's facing a lot of unpaid debt and he needs to find a way to get to Japan to go to the World Championship, but after what happened at the last major tournament, it's not looking real good. And so they end up at a hotel. He rents a room, he's, of course, using Tyler, the Creator. He is very clearly exploiting him for his own personal gain because he needs money now and a place to stay. So while they're at this hotel, he takes a bath, which is something that the hotel owner said, do not do, don't use the bathroom. He does, and while doing so, the tub crashes through the fucking floor and blows up the dude's hand who was underneath him cleaning his dog, who we met in the lobby. The dog is fine, the dude's hand is fucked, he needs to go to the hospital, and it's just so much chaos erupting out of nowhere, and then it becomes a very big piece where he needs to take that dog to the vet because that guy whose hand just got absolutely annihilated, like it went through the goddamn wood chipper, is offering him money to take his dog to the vet because his dog is sick and needs some help. So the two of them then go take the dog, but they don't go to the vet. They use the money that he got paid for it to gamble it, not really gamble it. They go and scam others through hustling to make even more money, and when they get even more money, they get found out that they're hustlers, then they get tracked down by people who are about to beat the fuck out of them, just kill them right then and there. They escape, the dog escapes, and now the dog's lost, and now he's being hunted by the guy whose arm he broke because now his dog is missing. It is just so much that keeps happening, and every time I thought that they were giving him an out, he fucking blows it up. He ruins it. Not in like a way that doesn't make sense. It's a very Marty Mauser thing to do, to be handed an opportunity that could actually save him and actually get him out of the hole, and then just wipe his ass with it. It is just so well done. And I really think something that stood out to me a lot was the music. The music makes this so tense. It reminded me of Courage the Cowardly Dog music from time to time. They crushed it with the score. It's haunting. What will play when Marty Mauser's going through like, you know, some kind of episode. And what makes all of this work is this 1-2 combo, this fucking two-piecing here of really strong writing. Like, I actually think they did a great job with writing these characters. Like I said, I think they have mastered the art of capturing stress and, like, bringing you into the stress. And also, an incredible performance from Timothée Chalamet. Not just Timothée Chalamet, everyone really does a good job. The weakest one, probably Kevin O'Leary, but even Kevin O'Leary delivers a fine performance because he fundamentally just plays himself. There were a couple scenes where I thought for sure he was going to say, you fucked my wife and for that reason I'm out. Like, it really is him just being Mr. Wonderful. So he didn't do like a poor job or anything, but everyone delivered like a top tier performance, especially Timothée Chalamet. Now, I've become somewhat of a fan of Timothée Chalamet over the last, like, year or so. I think he's been choosing, like, good projects, and he is very good in them. And I also really like how he is just very unapologetically being himself and being excited about what he's in. So, like, I saw in one of his speeches, he's like, I'm trying to be the greatest, I'm trying to be the best, and I really think I've been delivering some incredible performances. I actually really like that mentality. I feel like some people might get rubbed the wrong way, that it's like, you know, arrogant or something, but I like that. It reminds me of like an athlete or someone who is striving to be the best at what they do. And I think he really is trying to get up there with the fucking greats. And with performances like these, he shows he has the jaw for it. It shows he's got the talent. I really was very entertained by Marty Supreme. Again, I knew nothing about it going into it. I was fully open to the idea that this might just be trash, that they were desperately trying to make a break even on or something with having Timothée Chalamet shouted out all the time. That's not the case. I can see why he's so proud of it. It is a very good movie. It was extremely entertaining watching Marty Mauser basically solve a problem and then immediately fuck himself in his own face right after. So, like, he is extremely good at getting people to do his bidding and putty in his hands, but he always keeps going. He doesn't know how to stop. It is just so hectic, so chaotic. So even, like, when he is in a position where problems would be behind him if he would just, you know, call it quits right there, put the kibosh on the talking and the bravado and everything, he can't. Best example, and the one that really caught me off guard, is towards the end of the film. Spoiler warning. I've given little light spoilers. This is another, like, light spoiler. It's not the biggest one in the world, but just a warning. As he is, like, on his hands and knees at his wit's end, he has to get to Japan because he needs to go to the world championship to prove he is the best in the world. But he still doesn't have the money. Everything else is crash and burned around him. Everyone has been hurt around him. His last-ditch Hail Mary was to try and manipulate Gwyneth Paltrow's character into somehow giving him the money through making him, through portraying himself as like very sympathetic and all of that, where she'd feel inclined to help. It's not really working, but eventually he weasels his way to her basically giving him a necklace that her husband gives her every year that's worth a lot of money, but she hates her fucking husband. Guy's a dweeb, tired of him. She gives him the necklace because he can sell it, get the money, go to Japan, do what he needs to do to prove his greatness. And he then kisses her. And I thought that would be the end of it. They exchange a kiss, and he now has his problem solved. And he just keeps going. So a kiss turns into him eating her out in a public park in the middle of the night, and then cops are there, and they see that, and they stop them both, and then they end up having to give the cops the necklace to bribe them to stay out of jail. So now he's back to square fucking one. It didn't solve his problem, and I thought for sure that's where they were going. I thought that was going to be his out. It's not. So now he still has to solve this fucking problem in another way. It is so good that the ride never stops. Even when you think you see how it's going to go, it doesn't go in that direction. I was so entertained with this movie, man. I really did like Marty Supreme a lot. Is it a perfect film? No. I think this is definitely not going to be everyone's cup of tea either. I feel like if you watched Uncut Gems and didn't like how hectic and how stressful and even at times headache-inducing a lot of the conversations and scenarios were, this movie probably will not appeal to you. It has very similar DNA to that. He's fast-talking. It's very back and forth, or even, one person trying to overpower the other in a conversation. Like, it is going to be a lot that maybe people will find to be more frustrating than entertaining. I get that. But for me, I really did like it. Had me giggling, had me entertained, and made me want to get back to practicing ping pong. It lived up to the hype. If you're watching this, Timothée Chalamet, let me know if you ever want to catch these hands at ping pong. I think I've got a real shot. I don't know if he actually plays ping pong in real life, or if this is all CGI, phony baloney, smoke and mirrors, which I doubt it. It seemed very real ping pong there for the most part. So I imagine he probably practiced a lot for the film, and I think he would be a worthy opponent. But anyway, I liked Marty Supreme. I thought it was very good. That's about it. See ya. Whoa there, Buster. That's a flag on the play. 5-yard penalty. Unnecessary frowning. Let's try and fix that attitude now, shall we? There is a game that just came out a few days ago that's got everyone smiling, it seems, to the tune of over 550,000 concurrent players at its peak. Slay the Spire 2. I've pumped about 12 hours directly into the ass of this game, and I've only just now scratched the surface. It is content rich, so much meat on the bones, and for only $22, I think it is. Let me double check. We have technology right at my fingertips. I can't remember if it's $22 or $25. And it looks like it is $25, which I think is a great deal because for the price of a single big arch burger from McDonald's, you can instead get well north of 12 hours worth of content. In 12 hours, I have only just now completed a run with the 5 main characters: Ironclad, Silent, Regent, Necrobinder, and Defect. So 12 hours, and I have completed one run with each of these 5 characters, so I've completed 5 total runs in 12 hours, which is fucking nothing. That's basically completing the tutorial for each of these characters. Like, I'm through the introduction on each of these characters, more or less. I'm only just now getting to my Ascensions, which, if you're not familiar with Slay the Spire, Ascension is what you do after you complete your first base run, going through the 3 acts. There is so much content. So I think it's a great price point for how much content you get. And I know I've kind of already whole hog, both cheeks out, dove into like my impressions of the game thus far. It's very positive. I think the game is extraordinary. And that's probably no surprise to any of you that follow my gaming channel, which all of you should be following the gaming channel, Moist Critical Gaming. I've got numerous videos up for Slay the Spire 2. I am loving it. So I wanted to give you my review of the game after 12 hours so far, because a lot of people are seeing the headlines about how popular this game is and how much it's been, going ballistic out there and wondering, well, is the game good? Does it live up to the hype? And I'm here to tell you that, yes, I think it does live up to the hype. I really think this is something very special. If you played the first Slay the Spire, you know exactly what you're going to be getting in Slay the Spire 2, but everything is improved. The visuals, I also really like the new characters. Regent and Necrobinder, I think, are extremely fun with very, very cool mechanics. A lot of the cards have been improved. I think they've done a great job with Slay the Spire 2 across the board. There's nothing in here I think was like fumbled or lessened. I think everything has only been heightened and has been made even better. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with Slay the Spire, I'll go ahead and lay the groundwork here, the foundation here, hit you with the foreplay. It is a deck-building roguelike game, which I know in the current landscape are a dime a dozen. You can go on Steam right now and dumpster dive, finding 40 of those bitches released over the last 2 weeks. Roguelikes have become the new wave, the new hotness, and I know everything is ham-fisting roguelike mechanics into everything. But Slay the Spire is like the OG deck-building roguelike that blew up many moons ago, and the sequel, I think they carry that momentum and show why they're still like the best in the business when it comes to this genre. I really think they nail the formula, and there's just no other game I think that does it this well. I think Slay the Spire is to deck-building games what boobies are to happiness. The GOAT. Now, if you know nothing about deck-building games, deck-building roguelikes or anything, I'll just break it down to the bare bones. You will choose a character, and each character plays vastly different from one another. They have access to different cards, and they utilize different mechanics. And they also have a different starting relic, and relics are something that you collect throughout your runs to try and juice your shit in order to, you know, gear your build the way you'd like it to go, or, you know, all kinds of different things. There are just so many different variations. There are so many different cards and combinations and strategies. It is just endlessly replayable. You go through Act 1, 2, and 3, killing a bunch of enemies, which will give you other cards. You'll have potions that you can utilize in the middle of combat. You'll get relics, and you will always be changing your build around. No runs ever really play the same, even if you try and do like the same thing. For example, if you're playing Necrobinder and you want to laser focus on Doom, you will never have like the same Doom run every single time because the relics will always change. The cards you get will always change. The enemies you encounter will change. It's just so fucking fun. There is just endless depth to this game, and I can easily see this being like hundreds of hours to like really min-max everything and just fully fucking complete everything this game has to offer. In Slay the Spire 1, A20, Ascension 20 was like the max challenge there. I'm not deep enough into Slay the Spire 2 to know if that's still the case here. Maybe there's even more, I'm not sure. I'm trying to do most of this blind because I think it's much more enjoyable to go in there and like fully just have things, you know, fucking golden shower on top of you as fresh as they can be. So I've been really enjoying like learning everything through trial and error, discovering things. It's been so fun, and I am only just now at like the very tippity top of the surface here of how much content this game has. I'm playing it daily for multiple hours a day. It's so good. So I truly do think Slay the Spire 2 lives up to the hype. I know this was many years in the making. It was worth the wait. $25 for this much content, I think, is a great price point. I love to see things like that. I know I glazed and commended Hollow Knight Silksong for something very similar, where you get so many hours of content for a low price compared to like AAA games, where you'll pay like 70 or, Lord help us, God forbid, but unfortunately even $80 sometimes for like a, you know, 6-hour game or something, right? Like, I think this is just so refreshing. It's super nice, and also very simple. It's a game you can enjoy with your friends. Slay the Spire 2 has multiplayer. I just tried it for the first time last night with my buddy Ryan, but it has, I think, 4-player co-op. So you can have a run with your friends too, and they scale it up so that way it's not just like a full-blown fucking steamroll. Like, there is a challenge to it. Granted, of course, since there's more of you, there is more flexibility, so you probably will have an easier time, like if you're struggling by playing solo. I know a lot of new players have found it kind of punishing, which it is, and I appreciate that. I think it's a good thing. It doesn't hold your hand and put the training wheels on or clobber you with sock'em boppers. It's giving you the raw, you know, knuckle sandwich, and I think that's wonderful, and it will enable you to get better over time as you keep doing runs and figuring out better synergies and what cards work for what builds. It is just a game that I think is just a joy, start to finish. And like I said, the multiplayer is like a really nice cherry on top because playing with friends is a lot of fun. I had a great time playing with Ryan, and I imagine it's even better playing it in a fucking 4-stack. I bet that goes ballistic. I don't have any real complaints. Like, there's nothing in the game that I was like disappointed by. I will say that there are some cards in here that are utterly useless, just pure poop ass. Like, you will never take them in a run, and if you do, you will feel like an idiot for it. There are just some genuinely awful, terrible cards in here that I think could use a little, sprucing up, a little tuning on. But for the most part, I think they do a good job with all of the cards having a place and a role to serve and a function. Some cards obviously are much better than others, but yeah, that's always going to be the case. There's always going to be some cards that need a little tweaking, balancing, but I think just off rip here, they've done a really good job balancing things. Silent, I believe, is probably the strongest character in the game right now, but even then, I don't really think it's busted. Like, I don't think there's anything about Silent that makes it just like a complete cakewalk every single time. Like, you still need to activate neurons. It doesn't play itself. So, like, I have no problem with that being like the best character right now, and I still think it's in a good state overall in terms of balance. So I'm very happy with Slay the Spire 2. I'm really happy to see that it's doing so well right now. Over 500,000 concurrent players at peak is amazing. That's an incredible accomplishment, and I'm glad to see it holding so strong. Still over 200,000 players every single day? That's great. Hats off to the team. They knocked it out of the park. I just wanted to give you this little review as I continue to play through it, and of course post more of my runs on the Moist Critical Gaming channel, and really that's about it. So, yeah. No long-winded intro, I'm hugging my knees to my chest in the cannonball position diving in. New Avatar movie just came out, and it is the lowest rated one so far, which was pretty surprising to see. Now, I just got back from it. It's 3:30 a.m. The long movie, I saw it at 10:45 p.m., and I'm going to go on a little tangent real quick. I already said no long-winded intro, but I'm immediately sinning because I have to just complain about how long previews are. I've made a habit out of timing each experience with previews before a film. On average, it's about 21 minutes worth of previews before the movie starts. In rare cases, I've had it go up to like 26, 28, and even one time 30. This time around, though, this rodeo lasted quite a while because they had like an extended preview. I felt like I was watching a whole nother movie for The Odyssey. They played what felt like a 10-minute full sequence there before this movie. Now, luckily, it slapped. But Jiminy Christmas, the movie didn't start until significantly later than even I expected, knowing full well the average of preview duration. So it was a late evening here watching this film. Anyway, in order to talk about some of the things I want to, I'm going to need to get into spoilers. So this is your spoiler warning here. Spoilers going to be flying out the wazoo. Alright, I've warned you now. Overall, I liked the movie. I think it was entertaining. It was solid. There's nothing bad about it. By no means is there anything in here that I think isn't good. But honestly, I think it does deserve to be the lowest rated in the franchise right now, and I'll tell you why. My biggest complaint. This movie is extremely safe. Not only is it extremely safe, but it is extremely derivative of the previous two films. It doesn't introduce any new thematic elements or anything, and it borrows heavily from the first and especially the second. In the final act of this film, it is almost beat for beat, bar for bar, where the water concludes itself, minus one very important emotional high that the second film had. And that was an important character death. An emotional moment that I didn't see coming, that was a surprising death that felt very impactful and intense and carried a lot of weight. This film doesn't have that. There was no part in this film where I really thought any of the core cast was in danger, even knowing in the second movie they made that bold decision that caught me with my pants down when they killed one of the brothers. Here, the whole film felt just very much like James Cameron being comfortable. It's clear he knows what works, and in this film it also still works. But we've seen it before twice now, and he doesn't go out of his cozy comfort zone. He's perfectly content to just cuddle up with all of the same things that we've gotten from the first two without introducing anything else. And for me, that's just a little deflating, because for this film, I thought there were quite a few moments with a lot of potential to really wow you. And I thought that's what this would be going into it, given where Way of Water stops. I thought there was going to be like really, high stakes, big, bold chances taken with this movie, and it's just not. I expected this film to focus on fire, the same way that the second film focused on water, and I thought that was going to be like super hype, and we'd see a lot of like new creatures, a lot of like new imaginative things about this world. Like Where the Water introduced, where so many things just felt new and fresh, and like we were going on a brand new adventure in this brand new part of a world we hadn't seen in so long, and it felt so fresh and exciting, filled with creativity and imaginative things and creatures that inhabit it. It just felt so alive and so different. But this movie, it's recycling all of the same, not only like locations as Way of the Water, but also a lot of the same things that happen in Way of the Water. So you're seeing the same creatures, the same things that you already saw in Way of the Water, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but I just really thought this was going to be like exploring another new side of this beautiful world James Cameron crafted. I thought this was going to be about like the fire and like this group of Ash Navi. Because like it seemed like they started to do that when she was telling her story. They show like a really beautiful, quick thing about where they are and the fire, the catastrophe they survived. But then it goes right back to the water. And the entire final fight and pretty much all of the fighting and everything happens in the same exact water, the same exact area that it did in the second film. So it just feels like we've been there, done that. But like I said, there's nothing bad about it. And in fact, I would actually argue this is the most visually breathtaking in the Avatar franchise. The visual spectacle in here, zoinks. It is incredible. And I really love the introduction of the new Na'vi that we see here, the Ash Na'vi, where they've completely forsaken Awa. They're no longer like very spiritual or anything like that. They're very much like, I'm gonna fuck you up, carve your scalp, let it all burn type thing. Which I think is a great contrast to all the other Na'vi we've seen till this point. And they team up with the Colonel, and there's a really great dynamic with the Colonel where, he does just have the memories of a dead man. He's not actually that guy anymore. He's just not that guy, pal. And Jake is constantly trying to get that through to him, and you do see it start to weigh on him. I thought that was a really cool idea they were exploring there, and I'm excited to see where else that maybe goes. Spider is also a character that I thought was great in the second film and has an even bigger role in this one. But I will say, they make a decision with Spider, and the only family he's never ever known is the Na'vi, the Sully family. That is his family, but he is an alien to them. He has to have a mask on at all times because he can't breathe their air. It's poison. So even though they accept him as a member of the family, he feels like he's a member of the family, there is just this very obvious distinction that he isn't. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. In this film, it overwrites that, where pretty early on, something happens where he does get the ability to breathe their air, so he no longer needs their mask, and that also comes with the thing on the back of his head that I'm blanking on the name of. I was going to call it the Kundalini, but I know that's not it. The Kundalini is from that rabbit hole that we went down on stream a long time ago about that serpent in your spine that can make you come by thinking really hard or whatever. I can't remember what it's called in the film, but he gets that so he can breathe their air, huff it all in, no problem. He can jack into all life on the planet, connect to the animals, the spirits, everything. So for all intents and purposes, Spider is now a Na'vi in everything except skin color. Which in and of itself is a cool idea, and I think it is a natural progression of the character, but I really liked what I thought Way of Water was setting up for him, where the idea is, you don't have to look like your family, or you don't have to be able to do all the things that your family can do to still be a member of the family. I thought that was going to be an interesting thing that they play around with, but here they do kind of abandon that, and he is just a full Na'vi, basically. Which in and of itself has a lot of cool things about it, so I don't have like a huge issue with the direction or anything like that, but I don't know, I think it would have just hit harder if it didn't end up going kind of similarly to how Jake Sully did, where he does just become a Na'vi. Well, the same thing is happening now to Spider. He did just become a Na'vi. The only difference is he didn't grow fucking 5 feet and get blue skin, but he still has everything else there. Again, not the biggest deal in the world, because I think there is a lot of cool things they did with it in this movie, and I imagine more they'll explore in the future. I just feel like it would have been really interesting if they didn't. Instead of him just becoming a Na'vi, he could still just be that family member that happens to be a human. And that is a really interesting dynamic to play with that I thought they did really well with in Way of Water. Anyway, though, I want to get back to the things I like there. I already pointed out the Colonel is one of the highlights for me, but right behind the Colonel for standouts is Varong. She is the leader of the Ash Na'vi here, and also becomes the main love interest to the Colonel. And I think that's a really interesting thing that they explore there, because he, has been established as someone looking to really fuck up the Na'vi. He is still on Team Human and will do anything that they order him to. They say jump, he asks how high, yet he has legitimate feelings for Varong and actually fights with her and for her, defends her when the general tries to force them out, calling them savages and stuff. So it's a really interesting thing to see, he's forming connections now with the Na'vi through Varong and the Ash Na'vi. I think her character is great. She is to the Ash Na'vi what Jake Sully is to the rest of the Na'vi. She is a fierce warrior. She is brutal. She loves guns and fire, loves to burn things to the ground, and tells the story of how she got there to the Colonel, where after a catastrophe, her and her people were starving, so they cried out for assistance, praying for help from Awa. Nothing ever came. They felt Awa abandoned them, so they abandoned Awa. And she leads them, she saves them, and now she is the one that is keeping them all alive and doing everything she can to ensure their survival. And I really appreciate they didn't make her just an unhinged lunatic. Yeah, she does a lot of fucked up things, but she is still very much grounded in that she doesn't just randomly start slaughtering people for no reason, just a loose cannon. She does do smart strategy and tactics. She's not just crazy. She is ruthless, but she's not insane and stupid or anything like that. They do a great job of walking the line between her brutality and still her being a legitimate thinking being that's not just one-dimensional. Also, I want to make a special mention for the action. I think all of the Avatar movies have really great action. This one is no exception. I think the action here is spectacular. I think James Cameron always does a great job with it, and Fire and Ash has wonderful action. Probably the best in the franchise so far, I would say. I just think the Na'vi fighting the Ash Na'vi, every scene where they clash was really, really good. So, crushed it in that department. I will say, though, the catalyst for a lot of the action that happens seems to always be a member of the Sully family getting captured. I think that happened fucking 5 times in this movie. Basically, anytime they turn around, someone's getting captured from their family and used as bait to spawn a fight. I feel in the next couple of Avatar movies, maybe we should explore different means of getting a fight to occur that's not just getting captured. Because my god, it has happened a lot in these movies now. A fucking ton. But yeah, another thing, the music is great. I think most people are probably expecting good music in here, and you're going to get it. Like I said, it's a good movie, but I definitely think this is the weakest in the franchise so far, and that's solely because it's basically everything we've already gotten served to us again. But maybe for some people that's exactly what they want. It's entirely possible. Again, I was entertained. I also feel like the pacing of this film was really good. It never felt like it dragged and I was never bored. It's a very, very long movie, but it truly didn't really feel like that. I thought James Cameron did a good job of keeping things, moving along, which was great. So yeah, overall, it's good, but I definitely think it does deserve to be the lowest rated in the franchise so far. But anyway, that's really about it. So yeah. You read the title and you've heard the news. Battlefield 6 just released its Battle Royale mode. It's called RedSec. Get ready to put some hair on that chest, dweeb. I've now dumped like 4 or 5 hours into it, which obviously compared to many others is nothing. That's like a very pitiful amount. But for me, it's enough to give you a review of it because I now feel like I've pretty much experienced everything the game mode has to offer. And it's no secret, I haven't been the biggest Battle Royale enthusiast in many years now. The only one I keep up with is Apex Legends. It's just a genre that I find to be extremely stale at this point, just super bland. It's like the 6-7 of game genres, where just hearing about Battle Royale makes me fucking cringe like that god-awful meme. It's just, I'm so tired of it. But I like Battlefield 6, so I thought it only fair that I give this one a shake to see if it's any good. And now I can confidently say, it's fine. There's no huge flaws with it. The tanks are kind of annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. It's just a very by-the-numbers, very generic Battle Royale mode that they seem to have just slapped on here like a hemorrhoid, because there's no reason not to have a Battle Royale mode. It's only a boon to the game because there are plenty of people that will play the Battle Royale that maybe weren't interested in playing the multiplayer. And the Battle Royale is free. So it gets a lot of people in the door, and then maybe they turn into a paying customer. So it makes a lot of sense. But boy howdy, let me tell you, it really does feel like they just tried to draw Warzone from memory here for RedSec. It is 1-to-1 in certain instances. Like, it feels very copy and pasted in a lot of ways. Like, I'm pretty confident there are times where you could show side-by-side gameplay of Warzone and RedSec, and you wouldn't be able to differentiate which is which. It is very similar in a lot of ways, but the thing that sets it apart is the Battlefield 6 gunplay. Like, the gameplay elements in Battlefield 6 versus Warzone are very different. And for my tastes, I prefer it. So I've had more fun with RedSec than I had with Warzone. Warzone I have many more hours than RedSec with, obviously, but I fucking hate Warzone now. I think it sucks major ass. That is some turbo cheeks over there. RedSec at least feels fun to play. It feels nice. I prefer the Battlefield formula, so I've been having more fun with RedSec. But if you already like Warzone, I don't know if RedSec's going to win you over. The game mode is extremely similar to Warzone. You are likely going to just stick with the one that you prefer the gameplay of. So if you're someone that likes the less movement-based shooting of Battlefield, you're probably going to prefer RedSec. But if you already like the Call of Duty formula and all the movement tech there, RedSec's not going to be stealing you over there. It's not going to be taking the Warzone lunch money, I don't think. I feel like it's just going to be boiled down to a matter of personal preference in gunplay. And for me, I prefer Battlefield 6 gunplay. Like, everything in Battlefield 6 gameplay, I vastly prefer to Call of Duty. But again, RedSec and Warzone are so incredibly similar, I can't see a fucking world. In the entirety of Doctor Strange peering into the multiverse, I can't imagine he would see one where Warzone players are so blown away by RedSec specifically that they leave Warzone for it, if they already prefer the Call of Duty gameplay. Because RedSec just does Warzone with Battlefield gameplay in tanks. That's really it. Like, I can't find any other big differences. Maybe the ladder. You get to place a ladder down in RedSec if you play Assault or something. Or like the artillery strikes. But even then, there's comparable things in Warzone. It's just very, 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 very similar. So there's nothing crazy about RedSec. It's just been there, done that standard Battle Royale shit. And if you're someone that likes Battle Royales, you'll probably have fun with it if you already like Battlefield 6 gameplay. It's just as simple as that. But it's worth mentioning that Battlefield devs here are really trying to shove RedSec down the throat of everyone that plays Battlefield 6, even if they're not interested in RedSec. So I've been seeing that there's been a lot of negative reviews, not even so much about RedSec existence, Because if you don't care about battle royales, just ignore it. But they've tied a lot of like weekly challenges and shit to playing Red Sec, so you like needing to farm and all of that. And it seems like there's going to be a big emphasis on like the premium currencies and shit now. It feels as though that even though Red Sec is fine, it's just a really standard battle royale. It is alarming to the community who believes that this could be the vanguard of more things to come that they just don't want. Like, you can ignore Red Sec and not play it and just miss out on the XP tied to the challenges. Plenty of people will do that. Yeah, it's a bit of a headache for some players, sure. But you can just ignore it. What you can't ignore is if Red Sec takes off, the resources that they'll pump into Red Sec that they might be taking away from the rest of Battlefield 6 multiplayer experience. So there's many in the community showing legitimate concern that maybe the rest of Battlefield 6 starts to be neglected as they try and focus more on Red Sec so it can stand toe-to-toe with Warzone and try and squeeze some of those players over to Red Sec because they'd make more money that way. So I understand the concern there. Like, that does check out. Like, that makes sense. And it does seem like they're placing a huge emphasis on it, which isn't surprising. It's a brand new mode they've introduced. But yeah, it remains to be seen if Red Sec is going to end up being like the primary development focus to try and, you know, blast as much money out of it as they possibly can from the community. But I am very curious to see how everything shakes out. I truly don't think Red Sec is going to be a battle royale that stands the test of time that people are playing even 3 years from now. As I said, in its current state, it is like the most bare bones battle royale experience. It is clearly an afterthought to Battlefield 6, something that they put in here because they knew it's a very popular game mode that will get a lot of people to check out their game, get them in the door, get their feet in the door because it's free. And battle royales are still just so popular. Even though the genre went through oversaturation for a while, there's still no shortage of battle royales for people to choose from. But you'll probably notice most people just stick to the big ones that they already like. Warzone, Fortnite, whatever. I don't see Red Sec doing anything here that's going to get anyone to stick with Red Sec. What I think's more likely is people will try Red Sec and maybe if they really like the gameplay, they'll buy the multiplayer and then just stick to playing the multiplayer because it's just the better version of the game. Why would you be playing a watered down version of Battlefield 6's multiplayer with Red Sec when you could just play the multiplayer? So I just don't think that there's a lot of staying power to Red Sec. I could be very wrong. I guess we'll see. Only time will tell. But my early impressions here are it is just fine. It is just Warzone, but better if you like Battlefield gameplay. So if you're looking at Red Sec wondering if it does anything new and different in the genre to stand out, the answer is no. The differences between Red Sec and Warzone are pretty small in terms of like the actual design of it. The differences in gameplay are substantial, but like the actual mode itself is almost one-to-one with Warzone. Again, the only differences I could pick up are the tanks, the ring of fire. Instead of having like continuous damage if you're outside the zone, you just die, which I do think is a good change. I actually really like that change. I think that's solid. And then the only other one is like classes. So like the classes carry over from Battlefield 6 where you could be like assault and put up a fucking ladder, you know, or recon, support, engineer, that kind of thing. But I can't think of anything else that's different from like an actual design perspective of Red Sec versus Warzone. The rest is just the exact meal you're expecting to eat with this mode. And for some people, maybe that's exactly what you want. For me, I just am tired of the genre, so it doesn't really stick with me as something I'm going to be actively playing. When I want to play Battlefield 6, I won't be choosing Red Sec. I'll just be doing the normal multiplayer. Anyway, though, I just wanted to drop this little review on you here. That's really about it. See ya. The new Demon Slayer movie has finally been viewed by me, Charles. I know I'm a little tardy to the party here. It came out a few days ago, but it's never too late to get this farty sharded, and let me tell you, wow. I think it is a banger. Now, initially, I was a little skeptical on this decision here to take the final arc of Demon Slayer, and instead of just doing seasons, like anime traditionally does, they decided to break it up into movies. This is a pretty different approach to it, and I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it because I thought this would lead to like short movies where they just kind of speed run all of the content, so it'd be feeling like very underwhelming or half-baked, whereas a season gives you tons of episodes to build and then feels very satisfying when it gets to the end. I didn't know how this would pan out, but man, they cooked. I really liked Mugen Train, but Infinity Castle blows it out of the water. Not only that, it blows it out of the water and then smacks its little butt cheeks around it. This movie is incredible. Like, I know there's a big meme about Ufotable having, unlimited budget works, that kind of thing, but man, there is like some actual truth to that. I do not know how they are able to deliver this kind of quality for this long. I expected this to be a pretty short film. I knew nothing about the runtime going in. This movie is over 2 hours long, of pretty much non-stop action. The only time you have moments to breathe are when they're doing flashbacks to flesh out the character's motivation and backstory, which I can already tell some people will definitely have an issue with. I know flashbacks often get a bad rap, especially when they're used, like, egregiously. In this movie, though, I wasn't bothered by it at all. I actually really appreciated the flashbacks. It didn't feel rushed, and it was like a really, needed break in between action. You got to learn about the characters, what they've gone through, what this fight means to them, like in particular, Shinobu versus the Upper Two, Doma. Or you get Akaza's backstory, which Akaza's backstory is the longest by far, and it is the best. It is probably the best backstory Demon Slayer has shown thus far. I was really surprised by it. I loved it. I thought it was great. But I know some people will kind of roll their eyes at it because there is quite a bit of it, but I really enjoyed it, and I was very pleasantly surprised that they gave this much tender love and care to the characters. Because again, going the movie route, they reduce the amount of time they have to work with to build up these characters and get everything out that they need to make these fights meaningful. Because having just flashy fights with no, stakes and no, care about either character is lame. It's underwhelming, and it's a big matter of who gives a fuck. So the fact that they did spend this amount of time crafting that and putting that in here is really nice. And it makes me very optimistic for the next couple of films to wrap up the story. I think this was just a fucking home run. I think this was a grand salami. I think most of you know I wasn't the biggest fan of the Hashira training arc that they most recently had before this film. But now, after seeing this film, it's clear they just wanted to basically take their time to get you ready for the movie. Doesn't make the season any better in my eyes, but I can now see what they were in the lab concocting, and it really does slap. Obviously, this isn't a movie you can just go into blind without seeing any of the previous Demon Slayer seasons or Mugen Train. This is the final arc. They don't really do anything to bring you up to speed. They pick up right where the last episode left off. I appreciate that. You shouldn't go into a movie like this and expect them to give you, a lore recap, a refresher. So it's good that they dove right in and used all 2.5 hours to just go fucking nuts to butts on it. 2.5 hours of content. I really do feel like I got an entire season's worth out of this one movie. I actually really kind of like this model now. Of instead of doing, seasons, maybe there is a lot of potential to just doing, movies to adapt the source material. They are proving that the method can work. I really did enjoy the way that this was delivered. Anyway, though, the visuals are beautiful. I think if you've watched Demon Slayer, you probably expect top-notch animation. You get it here. They did not cut any corners. Now, of course, Demon Slayer has always used a bit of CG in its animation, but never the wonky dog shit Berserk 2016 level CG that people absolutely unanimously spit upon. This integrates it seamlessly, and it looks really good. Infinity Castle does definitely have some CG moments that don't stick out. They look great still. I'm gonna tell you something, sports fans, something I didn't expect to ever say. I actually think their usage of CG here blended in actually elevated some of the scenes that it was present. One of the most beautiful shots in this film is when platforms are rising, when it's Akaza versus Giyu versus Tanjiro. As the platforms rise with Akaza aura farming, additional platforms rise that pour water out, and it's very clearly CG usage here with 2D. And it looked incredible. There are so many sequences that use CG that I actually think help bring it to another level. They definitively prove that any anime that uses CG and it sucks ass, like the CG in it, it's their fault. It's not the medium. It's a tool that can be used really well here in anime. And by golly, I tell you, Demon Slayer does it the best at the moment. Now, another thing I want to point out is a superstar here is the music. Holy shit, the music was so good. Every battle has an absolute boner jam backing it. The intro especially stood out to me with its music. It almost felt like I was watching like an AMV or something. No, I guess not really like an AMV. It's not edited like that or anything, but if you've seen the movie, you probably know what I mean. Now, the story. The story is where a lot of people criticize Demon Slayer for being just very like generic and formulaic. And admittedly, yeah, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel here by any means, but it plays by the tropes well. Yes, there are moments that are definitely cheesy, but it doesn't detract from the overall experience. And like I said, it executes on the tropes very well. So, like, yes, when it's going through the flashbacks, every character is somehow connected, like, my big sister was killed by this demon, thus I need to kill this demon. I hate you, demon, for this. And then you'll learn about the demon. It's like, the demon had a troubled past as well. Like, yes, it does play out like that, like 100% of the time, but it doesn't matter. It's still, like, enjoyable. It's still a fun story. Even if it's nothing new, per se, I still think it is done well enough that it makes you care. Especially Akaza's backstory. I would argue that was done extremely well. They spent a lot of time on Akaza's backstory in here, which I will say took a lot of balls. To dedicate that amount of screen time to a flashback backstory for the bad guy in a movie. Like, you can do it in a show because, you know, maybe it takes 2 or even 3 episodes in a show, but you'll still have another, like, 10 episodes outside of that, so that way viewers don't feel like it drags or anything in there. To do that in a movie where you have significantly less time to work with and it takes up a larger percentage, it takes a lot of courage to commit to that. And I think it pays off. Like, I do think it added a lot to this to get all of that information about Akaza. It made everything feel more weighty. So I do like that direction, and I'm hoping they do more of that in the next 2 movies. I imagine they will. I don't see why they wouldn't. Now, I haven't read the manga, so I don't know, like, how much content was covered in this film, like how much they adapted here. But it felt like I got a ton of content, and it doesn't feel like it was really rushed through all that much. There's a couple instances where a few things were glossed over, I feel, in the interest of saving some time. But they did get, like, the point across, so it was still fine. But yeah, in the early parts, there were a few moments, like, in a couple flashbacks where it was, like, really quick. Like with Doma. But I don't think that's the biggest deal in the world. I think overall, it really felt like everything did actually take its time, and they weren't afraid to let things sit and linger like in Akaza's backstory. I really liked the movie. I'm sure you could tell I'm fucking gushing grannies over it right now. I thought Infinity Castle was great. If you like Demon Slayer, I think you're going to be very happy with this film, and I'm really looking forward to the next ones. That's about it. See ya. Season 4 finale of Invincible just dropped. I put my peepers on it nice and early this morning. I got up real excited, and I gotta let you know I wasn't let down. I thought it was a really strong finale to a very strong season. But I'm gonna rip the band-aid off right now. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. Grip your chair right now, sports fans, because it's about to get spicy. The animation blows major ass. I don't think anyone's surprised to hear me critique that aspect of this show. And I understand, I've heard the cope about why it's so stiff and bland because of, you know, how tight the schedule is to get it out, that kind of thing. I understand that, and not wanting to, like, work the animators to the bone in order to meet the deadlines. I get all of that. So then, let's play ball with a little thought experiment here. What if we don't have it come out on such a strict timeline and give the animators more time to flesh it out to make it look even better? I am not someone that needs the jingling keys at all moments of a show. A lot of my favorite shows are slow burns. Invincible is not that. Every episode of Invincible, basically, has action. So when you have an action-heavy show where the action looks like action figures colliding in this weightless fucking of nothing, it's jarring and feels underwhelming, taking the wind out of the sails of a show that carries so much momentum through extraordinary writing. But since they like to have everything end in an actual physical fight, when it stands out like this for being really not great, it just kind of sucks. Like PNGs floating around. There are multiple moments in Season 4 that are reminiscent of fucking Garu sliding down the hill in One Punch Man Season 3. And honestly, if this show wasn't so action right up in your titties at all times, I wouldn't care as much because the writing is so strong and I'm really invested in this world and these characters. But with every episode basically having fighting in it and it looks this bad, it stands out a lot and it becomes a big eye-rolling moment. And I know everyone likes to shoot spitballs and bukkake on episode 4 of this season, the one where they go to hell and it feels like filler. That is the most egregious example of it, but it's not just reserved for that. Pretty much all fights, every time they clash, looks like that, save for the key moments. And this is where it shows that they have the talent, they have the ability to make beautiful animated fights and these incredible, breathtaking sequences. They save that for like the most pivotal moments, like Conquest Round 2, the fucking remix, or Nolan and Thrag, or really just everything with Thrag getting involved there. Which I get makes sense from their budget and timeline to focus those resources there to elevate those moments because they are so important and it is a huge fight moment. But because it's used so seldomly in the season, it just lets you know what could have been if they decided to actually, maybe pump the brakes a little bit on the cutthroat release schedule and let the whole season get this treatment. It would make everything so much better, in my opinion, and I would personally be fine with a longer wait in between seasons if the entire season can look like that, or look like how it did in Season 1. I praised the animation in Season 1 right when Invincible started. I thought it was beautiful. I thought they did a great job with all of it, and apparently that took like 3 years to do, so I understand that might not be feasible, and that is a much longer wait in between seasons, but surely there's got to be a Goldilocks zone in here somewhere in the pipeline where you get great animation and a timely-ish release, where it doesn't, just fucking fall into the Stranger Things category of everyone forgetting about it in between seasons. My point is, this show is an incredibly good show. I love Invincible. I think it is captivating. I think it is so fucking strong. But I am constantly let down with the animation now because it just seems to get progressively weaker. So I would just love if that could be spruced up a bit to get back to its former glory of animation quality or something at least closer to it. But anyway, I don't want to harp on that too long because I do have a very positive takeaway from this season. I was very, very entertained. As I said, I am very invested in the world and the characters, and I think Season 4 gives you so much to chew on because it brings in, I think, the most interesting character, which is Nolan. Omni-Man is doing everything he can to try and atone for his sins, but this show doesn't just flip the switch like, oh, he's a good guy now, so we all have to forgive him. It plays with this very complicated character and this very messy man as he's battling his own demons and trying so desperately to prove that he has changed. But with his whole family devastated by what he's done, no one can trust him and everyone's afraid of him. It is so well written that it's not just like this instant switch that gets flipped where everyone's like, okay, we love Nolan now. See how great he's doing. Let's all pat Nolan on the ass. All right, let's go suck a fart out his butt. Nolan's a good guy now. Yeehaw. They put him in his place, let him know what he did is fucked up and that he probably will never be able to actually get forgiveness for it. And Nolan starts to wrangle with that too and starts to accept that they're probably right. He probably won't be forgiven, but he's going to keep trying because now he knows what's right from wrong, and it's what he wants to do. It's so well delivered. I genuinely think they have done an incredible job with Nolan, and it's not like his relationship with Mark and Oliver instantly get repaired because now they're fighting in this war to eradicate the rest of the Viltrumites to save Earth and everyone they care about. They don't just instantly become, this perfect father and son relationship, but slowly and surely they do start to connect again on a human level. And I also really liked Thrag. He lived up to the hype. He is menacing, he is imposing, and he is by far the strongest character we've seen yet. We haven't even seen him so much as, feel the impact of something. Every blow that was landed on him, he allowed it to land in order to assess the strength of Mark. And at every point, he just aura farms and lets him know that this is disappointing, this is underwhelming, and they stand no fucking chance. Even Space Racer, who has like the anti-everything weapon, Thrag doesn't even blink at it. It can one-shot Viltrumites, it fucking one-shots planets, and Thrag just aura farms on top of it. He literally just like Gangnam Styles on it. Like, he doesn't care. He is that powerful. It is extremely cool. And speaking of Space Racer, let me talk about the group that the Coalition has put together. Overall, I really like everyone here. I think Alan is still a very enjoyable character. I like Space Racer. I do think they kind of have to nerf him because he's so powerful. He has the anti-everything doohickey, the gun that can just fucking wipe out the universe by itself, really, if he so chooses. So in order to, like, compensate for that, he kind of has to be like a moron. And he's not even stupid either, because he also, like, during the showdown with the remaining Viltrumites, he has, like, an entourage of Ragnar, which are also an anti-Viltrumite species. Like, their claws, they're basically like these tiny little fucking dinosaur lizards that can hurt Viltrumites and tear them to pieces, like the only ones that can do that, really. So he brings them on, like, leashes and throws them at them like projectiles, which is very cool. So he's not stupid, but he doesn't utilize his gun or his motorcycle all that well. Like, if he was just smarter and more proactive, he could probably end this entire war by himself, but he just doesn't. I still think he's very cool, but you have to kind of suspend disbelief for a moment for a guy that has a weapon that powerful. Now, another character that gets brought into this group is Tech Jacket, and she has this Galadrian technology that is very powerful, repairs itself, is able to keep up with everyone. But I gotta tell you, she doesn't really do a whole lot. Like, what she does do is important, like where she hides herself and Alan on the Viltrumite ship. Like, that obviously is big, but like in a fight, all she does is just shoot beams, right? Like, she shoots like these meaningless beams that don't do anything, and they just mosquito bites basically the Viltrumites, and then she runs away. But she's able to like tank some hits from the Viltrumites, which is impressive, but I don't think she brings a whole lot as of right now. During the skirmish with the Viltrumites, she did have like the Surlock poison where it does make them vulnerable, so she was shooting that, which is helpful. But I feel like any character could have done that because it's basically a fucking blow dart of poison. It wasn't really something Tech Jacket brought to the table as like something only Tech Jacket could do. So right now I'm not really sold on Tech Jacket being like a instrumental component of this group that's going to be so important in ultimately winning this battle against the remaining Viltrumites. I was a little underwhelmed there, but I don't think she's a bad character. I just don't think she had a lot to do here, but maybe that changes in the next, season, couple seasons, whatever it looks like. Oliver in this season also gets a lot to do. He starts to bond with Nolan while Mark is healing from the Conquest rematch. And I think they did a good job of exploring that relationship because Oliver overheard his father saying that he never cared about, his mother or anything like that. It was an accident, it shouldn't have happened, that kind of thing. So Oliver now feels like, his father doesn't even fucking respect him, doesn't want him, doesn't care about him, not in the same way as Mark. And that's another really complex theme that they start to tackle, and they do so gradually. So when it does ultimately end with Oliver and Nolan getting closer over the course of a few months, it makes sense. And I thought it was well executed. Oliver, though, it seems like he is constantly just sidelined during the big fights where he overestimates his own abilities, which I think makes sense for the character. They've established that, but it always ends with him just getting basically KO'd. So he attacks Thrag right away, and Thrag just fucking ragdolls him, rips his arm off, and fucks him up, and then he ends up, decommissioned for many, many months, and when the season ends, he is still recovering, but he's not dead. That just seems to keep happening to him. Like, that seems to be his major role, is like, fuck, Oliver just got blasted again, shit, alright, it'll be a few months before we hear from him again, but I'm assuming he'll get stronger and evolve more. But now let's talk about the star of the show, Mark. Invincible goes through hell in this season, even more so than the previous seasons, I would say. His whole life is constantly just fucking agony. It is incredible the amount of suffering he goes through. So obviously the Conquest rematch ends with him getting his fucking intestines spilled, and he's unconscious and recovering over the course of many months on this strange world. He's away from Eve, the love of his life. He's away from his home planet. He's away from his mother. He's with his father, who very complicated relationship, understandably, and it's just misery. And even when he does finally recover, then he has to go throw down with Thrag, and Thrag blasts Nolan right in front of Mark. Mark thinks his father is dead, and then it's Mark's turn on the chopping block in the Thrag Thunderdome. He gets knocked out, unconscious. He's getting his eyes gouged out, but then Thrag shows mercy because of how few of them are left. When Mark awakes yet again after this period of needing to rest and recuperate, then he goes back to Earth thinking that the Viltrumites are there, and he is suffering from PTSD. He is constantly seeing Thrag kill people around him, but it's all in his head until the very end, which I thought this was an incredibly powerful moment. He goes for just a casual flight to clear his mind, and then he does run into Thrag. The Viltrumites are there, and Thrag reveals to him that he has a choice to make. Mark can either let the Viltrumites on his planet continue to try and rebuild their civilization through breeding with humans, which has been proven to work, thanks to Nolan, or it can be mutually assured destruction for both their species, because Thrag and the remaining 37 Viltrumites will blow up the whole planet, killing everyone there, and it will spell doom for humans and Viltrumites alike. And that is an incredibly tough thing that Mark has to battle with there, and I think it's done so well. Mark ultimately realizes that the only way is to just agree to the terms. So he does. I thought that was so fucking good. Everything they did with Mark in this season I thought was great. Even when Mark comes home, he learns about what Eve went through when he was gone, thinking that he might be dead, and how she is now pregnant and Mark's not there. So she reaches the incredibly difficult decision to have an abortion, and it's something that now Mark and Eve are now dealing with and feeling the weight of a decision of this magnitude. Season 4 really, I thought, did an incredible job of building every character and getting them to a point where you genuinely care where it goes next. And they tackle some very deep themes, and I think they do a great job with the writing. But like I said, my big complaint is the animation. If this wasn't a show that had so much action at every step of the way, I wouldn't care as much, because it would solely be, this incredible story with this incredible writing and these great characters that I care about. But because there is always a fight that happens in basically every episode, it stands out when it looks this bad. I'm sorry to say it, but it does. So I just really, really hope that maybe in the next season we can take more time here, give the animators more time to really cook it and let it breathe. Let them finally craft the fights like they did in season 1 or in the Adam Eve special. Just getting to something of that quality again would do wonders for this show, especially where it currently is. So anyway, I really liked season 4 of Invincible. I thought it was extremely strong. I would just really like to see more in terms of the animation. And I think that means giving the animators more time. I recognize that maybe that's not a sentiment shared by everyone. They just want to go, go, go. Please just keep feeding it no matter what. I would like to let them really, flex their talent here and show what they can deliver in terms of animation. Because you can see it sometimes throughout the series, like when the Mark vs. Conquest again, or Thrag, there are some really great animated moments. I would like to see the entire season have great animation, as opposed to just a couple of small pieces of it. Anyway, though, that's really about it. So, yeah. Can you believe there's actually a chance of snow in Tampa this weekend? Very chilly out, which is why I'm wearing my Oreo sweater. My parents got this for me for Christmas. I just saw Iron Lung. This is a passion project from Markiplier. He stars in it, he directed it, and he helped write it. I believe it was fully self-financed by him. This is not a big studio project, and this is perhaps one of the most ambitious forays of YouTuber into cinema that I've seen thus far. He really went in fucking balls deep, that's for sure. And it is based on a video game of the same name, Iron Lung, which I have played. I did not like the game at all. I know people really poo-poo on my take on Iron Lung, but I just did not get into the game. It was not for me. But I was very excited to see this film because the universe of Iron Lung, like the lore of it, I do find fascinating when I went and like actually gave it a chance after suffering through the game. And the best part about Iron Lung as a movie is I don't have to play the gameplay of it. So now I get the good stuff, which is the story of Iron Lung, which is a delightful treat. I don't have to eat my vegetables with that gameplay. I just get to kick my little legs in the chair and have a good time. So, the big question on everyone's mind is Iron Lung good? I would say it is. Now, I don't think it's a movie that's going to be for everyone. This is a movie that I think fans of Markiplier will be very pleased with, fans of Iron Lung will be extremely pleased with, because it is like 1-to-1 with the game. And I also think it's a film that anyone that appreciates like eldritch horror type content or slow burns will also like. But it does have some shortcomings. Now, I know Markiplier was going to like some of the premieres, and one of the things that he was mentioning is like, try not to spoil things. So in the spirit of that, I will, for the first time in a while, avoid spoilers while talking about this movie. Quick side note, I was a little bit giddy in my chair, kind of hoping Markiplier would make a surprise visit to Tampa here for this premiere. I was half expecting him to rappel from the fucking ceiling or something, like, "What the fuck is up, Tampa?" or something like that, but didn't happen, so I gotta say I'm a little disappointed there. I feel like, you gotta be looking at Tampa when you're looking at some kind of big, premiere type shenanigans. It's very surprising and peculiar to not pay a visit to Tampa. But anyway, Iron Lung, you will spend 95% of the film with Markiplier locked in a sub as he is losing his mind on this mission, set in a world where all the stars and habitable planets have vanished and humanity's basically on the brink of extinction. In an effort to survive and try and press forward, they send a convict named Simon, played by Markiplier, in a submarine in an ocean of blood on an important mission for the sake of humanity. They have found some... I don't know how deep I can get into the synopsis without it getting into spoiler territory. An ocean of blood is set on a planet that they have been investigating, and Simon is now tasked with an important mission. Should Simon complete this mission, he earns his freedom. Simon has a dark and mysterious past, much like Urgot from League of Legends, and this is his way of getting back into society doing this mission. His submarine is called the Iron Lung, and it's got some wacky tech there, and it is a fucking tank. It is built like a colossal shit wagon. Like, this puppy is built to last, and it is equipped with a camera that he will be taking pictures with, and then, of course, sharing with the rest of the station. Those pictures are of the utmost importance with what he finds at the bottom of the ocean of blood. That's kind of like the broad strokes narrative in a nutshell, and I think it's a very interesting narrative that by the end of the film I think becomes very captivating. But I think the first half of the film is very, very slow, and I think fans of the property are going in expecting that. They know it's going to be a slow burn, but if you don't know anything about Iron Lung and you're expecting like a horror movie starring Markiplier, you may be a little underwhelmed for the first like 30-ish minutes of it, because this is Markiplier doing some chores, taking some pictures, doing some homework basically, crunching some numbers, and occasionally talking to a woman over the intercom. And for me personally, I didn't have a problem with it. It does very much drag sometimes, but overall, it didn't bother me. I've never been someone that's been necessarily put off by slow burns, and I do like eldritch horror type things. So by the end of the film, I definitely did, care about Simon and the mission and basically everything that they had put on the plate. But I don't think everybody will. I think a lot of people might kind of tune out in the first half, and it won't be until the second half where they start to really give a fuck. Now, I want to get my biggest complaint out of the way immediately. I'll just rip the Band-Aid off. This movie, especially towards the end, has this, I don't even know if I can call it like a mixing issue or what, but there is just so many like characters talking sometimes that are layered on top of each other, and especially like the main antagonist, the way in which they speak and the way in which the filters are used on the voice makes it fucking impossible to comprehend what they're saying, like what words they're actually using. So a lot of like the dialogue that you hear from some of the characters is very mumbly, which I do think is by design, but it's also mixed in a way where even when I think it's supposed to be more clear and you're supposed to be able to like pick certain things up, certain elements from the speech and be able to understand the message of what they're saying, it's just inaudible and it's like impossible to decipher, like especially at the end, which again, I don't think was intentional because it felt like, especially when Simon was interacting directly with certain characters, that you wanted to know what was being said in return, and I think you were supposed to be able to understand it, but personally, I couldn't at all. Like, it felt like trying to remember a dream, trying to figure out what they were saying. Which adds to like the whole ethereal nature of like eldritch horror and all that, but it also just becomes kind of a headache when you're hearing Simon clearly respond to something that you have no fucking idea what was even said. So you're kind of like confused on, well, what is being said? Like you're hearing words, but it sounds like fucking, Charlie Brown's parents. I don't know. That just felt like a little off to me. Maybe not everyone will feel the same way, or maybe I'm just a fucking moron who just couldn't understand things and it's more clear for everyone else. I don't know, but it's something I wanted to make a mention of because it's definitely something I noticed very much at like the end of the film. But I want to make a strong mention of something. This movie looks surprisingly good on the big screen. I say surprisingly because when you hear of like an independent film from a fucking YouTuber that's, self-financing it, you're probably picturing like some pretty shoddy visuals that don't exactly look all that glamorous. And outside of like the first shot was a little rough. It immediately kind of put a sour taste in my mouth thinking I was about to be just watching like a YouTube short or something for Iron Lung because it didn't look all that great. But after that first shot, it settles into like this really good flow of cinematography where it's clear it's not a huge budget production, but it hides that really well with some creative shots that feel very claustrophobic and actually highlight some of the best moments of dread where things look really good. And actually, even when they do show like some of the eldritch horror, I was expecting kind of, B-movie CGI. They did like a really good job for the most part when it came to like the CGI visuals, even outside of the submarine. The submarine, which by the way, is practical effects. It's on like a crazy hydraulic system where it's like fucking gyrating and shit. It's a really cool set that they've made for this. Like, I was really, really impressed, and it shines in the movie. They did a great job with that. But of course, there is some CGI when it came to like the eldritch horror elements, and they look very good, except for a couple of moments at the end of the movie. But for the most part, there's nothing here visually that'll make you go, ooh, that kind of looked like ass. It's all very solid, like across the board. I was very impressed. And I think the way they filmed their shots, like a lot of their shots are filmed in a way that do a great job at not letting you see that maybe it's not the biggest budget that they had to work with. And I do think one of the methods they used is one that I don't really like. They did a lot of shaky cam at the end. And I understand they're doing that because, again, it's not massive budget. So if they kind of just held like a, static camera there, it might not look as good. And it does kind of add to like the hectic nature of the things going on at the end. I get it. Not a big shaky cam guy. I've criticized that in a lot of other movies. I will, of course, make a mention of it here too. But it's not the biggest deal in the world because that's pretty much just reserved for the ending chaos. But now we gotta get to the biggest piece of the pie here. You're gonna be spending the majority of the movie watching Markiplier. The vast majority of this movie is Simon on screen, Simon freaking out in the sub as he's uncovering horrifying things, as the eldritch horror is interacting with him and the world around him, and you're going to be watching him basically deteriorate, which means we go on an emotional journey with Simon, which means Markiplier is going to have to be doing a lot of heavy lifting with some high quality acting in order to sell this character to the audience. So this movie either hits or shits based on the audience's ability to separate Markiplier from Simon. If they can buy into Simon as a character as opposed to just Markiplier on the big screen. And that's where it gets tricky. Overall, I think his acting was good. There were some moments that were better than others. I do think when it came to like emotional beats where he's arguing with the woman on the intercom about certain things, again, I'm avoiding spoilers to the best of my ability, but when he's maybe divulging a bit from his past, I feel like it became very hard to see Simon the convict, and instead I was mainly seeing Markiplier instead of this character. Like, I don't think a lot of those conversations with the woman on the intercom were necessarily hitting the way that I think they wanted them to. And it's not really for any fault of Markiplier's acting. I just think the way that he's conveying his emotions on screen just wasn't really able to sell the stakes. So like when he's really getting frustrated with the woman on the intercom, he's saying, fuck you, and fuck this is ridiculous, I don't, like that kind of stuff. Like I feel like I'm hearing Markiplier in a Let's Play as opposed to Simon the convict having a blow up at this woman on the intercom who is basically, I was just about to get into big spoilers, but who is maybe not as cooperative as he would like. So it at times was difficult to see Simon as opposed to Markiplier, but I don't think he ever did like a bad job at acting. It just, some scenes weren't really landing overly well, but I do think he did land more often than not, especially towards the end of the film. I feel like his acting throughout the film got better. Like, it felt like he got more comfortable playing this character the longer this went on, which is something I said very similarly in his show that he had. In that show, which, forgive me, I can't remember the name, about sleep, I actually think as the episodes went on, he got better. Like, it feels like Markiplier is someone who definitely has the ability to act, but needs time to acclimate to the character he's playing. So in Iron Lung, as we're nearing towards the big climax, towards the end of the film, he is really starting to get into much more of a flow state when it comes to this character, and I was buying into it a lot more, and it did start to shine. So I don't think his acting was bad or anything, but I do think, especially in the beginning where it is slow and it is very much like Markiplier having to do most of the heavy lifting because he is what is on screen the majority of the time, there were moments where it just wasn't really feeling overly amazing. Now I want to make a mention of something else real quick. I know I was criticizing the mixing of like character voices and stuff, how it became very hard to understand what was being said a lot of the time. I don't want it to get confused with like just general sound design in this movie, because I actually thought they did a good job at like the ambient noise and all of the eerie creaks and all of that, where it could actually sell you on like the intensity and the hopelessness of a situation with nothing more than just the sounds of what was going on around Simon, which I know in Iron Lung is something fans praised a lot about the game, how its use of sound was very unnerving. I do think the movie for the most part did a good job at that too. I thought it excelled in certain cases of using sound to unnerve viewers or showcase just how dreadful it would be to be trapped in this fucking submarine at the bottom of an ocean of blood with an eldritch horror fucking fish thing all around you, right? I think they did a good job using sound and ambient noise to be spooky, but I would never actually call this like a scary movie per se. It's more of like an exploration of dread in kind of like a high concept sci-fi world that I think is done well enough. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's perfect or anything, but I do think it's a very, very strong debut here for a self-financed and distributed YouTuber movie. Like, this is just a solid movie on its own two legs, even if you don't know who Markiplier is, but I really do think it is not a movie that everyone's going to like. Mainly because I think the first act just moves very, very slow for anyone that's not already a fan of Iron Lung or watching Markiplier. But overall, I think it's solid. I was impressed, and I'm really curious to see if Markiplier will do other ventures like this going forward. I think he does have, like, a very strong talent for it, and I think this was a very decent showcase that makes me kind of excited to see if he'll do anything else with this going into the future. Anyway, that's really about it. See ya. Glaze is a powerful thing, and it spreads like a virus. To some people, it's like a drug almost, where they can't help but just spread it. And what you find to be glaze-worthy, I might not, and vice versa, but I'm something of a glaze epidemiologist, where once something starts to spiral, I start to study and try and sink my teeth into it to find out, does it deserve this level of adoration? And such is the case with an anime that just premiered called Sentenced to be a Hero. I'd never heard of it before, but seemingly out of nowhere, tons of people gushing grannies over it. I've even seen some people say that this will be the biggest anime of the season, which is big boy words. That's beefier than this fart. Don't know if the mic picked it up. That one was just a bunch of air. The hair was a silencer on that one. Not a lot of bass there. Point is, this is a stacked season for anime. Some huge names are coming in for a new season that people are extremely excited for. But right now, all eyes and all attention are on Sentenced to be a Hero. Now, granted, it has started before a lot of the other ones, but it has a huge 9.1 rating as of me making this video, so of course, I had to check it out. Does it live up to the hype? Now, there's only one episode of it right now, but it's an hour long, which I really appreciate it. I think that's always pretty special. To me, that shows like a level of confidence in the show that they believe it's going to be a spectacle, and we're coming out, the gloves are off. So it's 1 hour premiere here for Sentenced to be a Hero. And let me tell you, wow, is it impressive. Like, the visuals in this are incredible. I saw that was a lot of people's, big point is how great the action is in Sentenced to be a Hero. They weren't lying. It is constant action throughout this hour, and it is animated beautifully. It goes fucking hard, and I love that our main character, Xylo's power, isn't the standard, super strength kind of thing. He uses sacred seals. One of them lets him fly, and the main one you see him using for combat is he imbues swords with fire and light, which cause them to explode. So he throws swords that blow up on impact, and he uses it to kill demons. In this show, they're called fairies. They're controlled by a demon lord. It is extremely hype. This premiere felt like I was watching the finale to an anime season. This was almost anime movie level quality for this hour. I was very, very, very impressed. They were definitely right when it came to the hype around the action and the animation. It was extremely good. Now, I also was pretty interested in the world they built here. Hero shows are a dime a dozen. That's the main thing. Even outside of anime, everything is geared towards hero type content. So immediately the name Sentenced to be a Hero, I thought, okay, it'll probably be a pretty generic hero anime, which is fine as long as, it's cool. They do give it a different spin. So in this universe, being a hero is the worst thing you can be. It's a crime. Rather, it is the biggest possible punishment for criminals. When people see a hero like Xylo, they're not excited. They're angry. They're upset because they know that the reason he is a hero is because he was sentenced to be one, meaning he is the lowest of the low. He is a piece of shit that took a shit. If you are punished, the worst imaginable punishment in that world is being sentenced to be a hero, which gives you basically immortality where even if you do die on hero duty, they drag your soul back from hell in order to make you be a hero again. So you are constantly being fundamentally tortured on the front lines fighting for the rest of the people around you. So it's not a noble position, it's the worst position, which is an interesting spin on it. And also, they introduce goddesses, which are these weapons that are utilized by the knights. However, in episode 1, our hero, Xylo, makes a pact with a goddess, and they are fundamentally the most powerful weapon against the fairies / the demon lords. It's a really interesting spin off of tropes in the anime hero genre, and I'm very curious to see where it goes. That being said, it's very simple so far. We're only an hour in. Our main character, he was betrayed, and his crime seems to have all been a setup, and now he's forced to endure this eternal punishment for it, where he is viewed as the ultimate evil. And of course, there's other heroes around him, and now he has a new goddess that he has made a pact with, and they will be fighting fairies and demon lords, presumably for the rest of the season. So while it's not extremely deep right now, I could never expect it to be after just one episode, 1 hour long, but it is enough to get me hooked on the show, and I want to see it through for sure. The action was incredible, the animation was amazing, and I do think the narrative is interesting enough and different enough from the others in there that it feels fresh. Overall, I really liked it. I definitely understand why there's so much hype around it now. I think it lives up to the hype for sure. Now, I do want to express there is only one episode out. So, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that this is like the best episode in the season. Like, maybe from here, the animation takes a fucking nosedive. We've seen it before. Ninja Kamui, Lord help us. Anyone that watched that train wreck unfold. The first 3 episodes, fucking masterpiece. And then it just eats the fattest ass you've ever seen. CGI out the wazoo, becomes like the worst mecha anime ever. They even had like AI images in it at one point. It was a fucking disaster. But it had 3 amazing, beautiful episodes in the beginning. Huge bait and switch with Ninja Kamui. I'm praying that's not the case with Sentenced to be a Hero. I'm pretty optimistic it won't go down that path, but I wanted to at least make a mention that it's something kind of in the back of my head here, since this was such an explosive, beautiful start to it. I don't know how many episodes are going to be in this season, but I wonder if they can keep up that level of quality throughout the entire series here. I feel like they probably can. I think they probably wouldn't have done an hour blowing their load right away if the rest is just trash. Like, if the rest is dog shit, I don't think they would just dump an hour immediately. They'd probably want to spread that out as much as they could. So I'm pretty confident that it's going to stay very high quality throughout. This was a real pleasant surprise of a show here, and another anime that I'll be watching this season. It really is crazy how stacked this season is. There are so many bangers, and now, from out of nowhere, from the top turnbuckle, Sentenced to be a Hero comes in and just fucking lat spreads. It was a really good premiere. And while we're on the subject of anime, I started Orb on the Movements of the Earth very recently. Well, I started a while ago, but then tons of other stuff came out, so I ended up watching that, fell to the back burner. Started again recently. What an incredible show. I haven't finished it yet, but man, what an amazing show. And then I heard that the creator of Orb made 100 Meters. Buddy mine Dankin hasn't stopped going ballistic over how good 100 Meters is, which is an anime movie that's on Netflix right now. So I also just watched that. What a fucking amazing movie. I've said this for the last, 3-4 years maybe. We are actually in the golden age of anime animation, in terms of how incredible these shows look. I know plenty of people will split hairs over, the quality of anime that's coming out, whatever. I'm not here to have that debate. I'm talking purely from the standpoint of animation. It is breathtaking how incredible the shows and movies are that are coming out. Visual masterpieces. The spectacle is unbelievable. In 100 Meters, there is a 3.5-ish minute continuous shot that is painstakingly rotoscoped frame by frame. I looked it up. It's 9,800 or something drawings just for that one section. It is a clear labor of love, and the passion is oozing out from that film every second. I was really, really, really impressed with 100 Meters, and I'm really enjoying Orb, so I'm definitely going to be finishing Orb as well. Big fan of that creator now. Back-to-back bangers I really liked from them. I just wanted to briefly mention that here since I'm just yapping about anime. Incredible stuff is coming out right now. And like I said, this season is so fucking stacked. Also, Fate, the new Fate series just started. It just had its premiere. I haven't seen that one yet, but apparently it's really good. So anyway, yeah, back to the whole point of the video. Sentenced to be a Hero. Great start. Excited to see more. That's really about it. It lived up to the hype. That's about it. See ya. When I heard they were making an It show, I kind of had the same gut reaction everyone else did, which was to write it off and just pretty much assume it was going to be, at best, mid. But as I've always said, even things that I'm pretty confident I will hate, I will always give a fair shake to and approach with an open mind, willing to be pleasantly surprised and proven wrong. And in the case of It, Welcome to Derry, the TV show, I was pleasantly surprised. I was wrong, for the most part. I don't think it's a perfect show or anything, but it is significantly better than I would have expected it to be. Now, I'm going to be getting into spoilers, as I always do these days, so this is your fair warning. This show added a lot of things to it that I think on paper sound fucking stupid. Actual crack pipe smoking dumb ideas that if I just read a plot synopsis for this series and saw it in there, I would giggle at it and just immediately wipe my ass with this show. But actually watching it, it shines. In particular, I'm talking about Halloran. Halloran is a powerful psychic with the military who they're using as fundamentally like a Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 UAV kill streak. He is a psychic that they are trying to use as a compass to target and locate it, the crash site of this entity. So that way they can use it to stop conflict across the globe by just instilling debilitating fear in them. They want to capture it and use it, and they're using Halloran to find it. And he has psychic abilities, in the truest sense of the word. He literally does have psychic abilities. Not to like Mob Psycho level or anything, but he can poke around in people's brain. He can incapacitate people with his mind. He can see into them. He can like astral project himself. And I would have not expected something like that for it. But man, it works really well in this show. And I think it's because of how good of a character Halloran himself is. He is a very interesting character, a complex, deep character that we learn a lot about, spend a lot of time with, and see do some really cool shit. So it worked. Like, I would have never expected it to, but it did. Another thing I would have never expected to work really well was having it not always be Pennywise. Because the most iconic part about this entity is the Pennywise element to him, especially with Bill Skarsgård being Pennywise. He does such a phenomenal job as that character. Well, in Welcome to Derry, this entity is not Pennywise at all, really. You don't see Pennywise in the way that you've seen him in the past until like episode 6 at the end. For the most part, it is doing all kinds of other things to scare and kill its victims in Derry. And it works really well. It is brutal, especially the end of the first episode. That was probably one of the most shocking episode premieres I've ever seen, because it like lulls you into this false sense about where the show's going and how it's going to play out. Like, oh, we've been down this road before. It's going to basically be like the losers versus Pennywise again, but this time a little deeper in the past. Okay, snooze fest. And then the end of that episode hits, and it's just a fucking slaughter of everyone you thought was safe, that everyone you thought was going to be a main character just dead, brutalized, like annihilated. It was surprising, but it wasn't shock for the sake of shock, because that becomes an integral part of where the series goes from there. That is like its main motivator, because then you follow two characters that survived it, and how, as a result of those deaths, Ronnie, one of the characters that survives it, her father's being framed for the kids dying there. And Lily, she's had her own traumatic experiences, and people think she's crazy, so no one believes her and she can't tell people, and she has to find a way to try and prove she's not crazy, and so that way she doesn't get sent back to, Arkham Asylum. It's like a really interesting direction Welcome to Derry goes that I didn't expect it to at all. And it works really well. I think they are very creative with how it terrorizes and kills in this series. Now, with that being said, sometimes the way that it terrorizes and kills looks like absolute dog shit. There are moments in this series that the CGI is just embarrassing. In particular, episode 3. Holy shit, the entire cemetery section where they're trying to take a photo of the entity to prove that Ronnie's father wasn't the one responsible and that there is a monster that's killing kids. And they go to a cemetery to try and provoke it, and then they end up getting ganked by a bunch of ghosts and chased around by them. And my god, it looks terrible. It reminded me of the early 2000s Haunted Mansion movie with Eddie Murphy. Visuals to that level. It was really awful looking. The visuals completely ate shit throughout that entire sequence. And not just there are multiple other instances throughout the series where the CGI just looks super half-baked and unfinished, as if they forgot to texture it but then ran out of time, so they just said, fuck it, do it live, ship it. There are moments where the CG is just very, very bad. I also think there are quite a few times where the writing is also atrocious. For the most part, I think the show has solid writing, especially when it comes to some of its main characters, but there are other times where it feels like what they ended up, just printing was placeholder. It feels like there's no way this is how they actually wanted it to come across. For example, I think the most egregious moment of baffling writing choices is in their mission in the sewers. So they've located an artifact that they want to track down, And so the military does a mission in the sewers, and they send like an elite team in there in order to find it. And they're being led by a member of like the secret organization tasked with keeping the being under control so it doesn't just, run rampant. So they have this big team together. They're going through the sewers, and they are very familiar with the entity at this point. They know that it wants to separate, isolate, and kill. They know that anything they see in the sewers that they can't explain, they have to kill, they have to shoot, because it is most likely it about to attack and kill them. Like, they know everything about this. The only thing they don't know is the landscape of the sewers, but that doesn't matter, because what ends up happening is when they go in the sewers, pretty much instantly, they all just start splitting off. So, like, they're walking through the sewers and it's a single file line, and you would expect that they'd be in, like, constant contact with each other, like, talking, so that way they know everyone's still in line, or at least, like, turning around and checking every now and then. But that's not how it works at all in the sewer. What ends up happening is, the second that they have to, like, drop into some water, they, like, the first couple that do so, then, like, push a whole mile ahead before the rest do. So, like, they are now completely separated. So they're so far away from the group now that they can't even hear, like, screams from them or anything. So then, like, the next wave of the line goes through the water, and then Halloran gets to the water, and he gets pulled under, and the two guys behind him saw it happen, so they're like, oh, what the fuck just happened? We gotta find Halloran. He just got, like, yanked under. Where are you? Start saying words. Scream. Like that kind of thing. Scream if you love it. Come on, just anything. And nobody ahead of them can hear any of this, like the splashing around, the screaming, the yelling, because they are now so far ahead, and they haven't checked at all if anyone's still with them. So these two guys are looking for Halloran. These two guys are now isolated, so they get ambushed by it. It is like the craziest shit, because they already know that it is there, and they know that it wants to separate and isolate them. Why wouldn't they at least be turning around to make sure everyone's still there? It's like the quickest and simplest action to take, but it doesn't happen. So then, Hanlon and Polly, who are characters that are very important, we've spent a decent chunk of time with them, they happen to notice that the others are missing, so they then go back to look for them without informing the two ahead of them. So there's just never any communication, so the two ahead of them continue pushing forward without knowing that Hanlon and Polly have left. Hanlon and Polly go look for them. Now they're isolated, and now they're getting ambushed by it. Like, it's just so fucking stupid, because all it would take is just like a simple, like, sound off, like, hey, you guys still there? Or even just like one of these, like looking over their shoulder. And then they'd be able to immediately recognize whether or not they're all still in a group or separated. And because of that lack of communication or lack of really doing anything sensible, the whole thing goes tits up, and everything is, out of control now. Like, that was just so fucking silly to me, because it just felt so unnatural. Up until this point, most of the characters, I would say, were making mostly smart decisions, at least on, like, how they handle certain things. But in the sewers, everyone got hit with, like, a stupid beam. Like, I don't understand what went so wrong there. Like, it feels like that would be, like, they knew what they wanted to do with have this mission going wrong in the sewers and all of that, but they didn't know a way of doing it other than just having every character just all of a sudden become like a fucking lobotomite. And in that same episode with the sewers, Paulie does a heroic sacrifice where Hanlon believes that he just saw his son in the sewers, but that doesn't make any sense, because why would his son be there? And we had just seen moments before he had saw, like, something else that wasn't actually there. So the idea is Hanlon is now just going to shoot his son because he thinks it's it. But Paulie notices, no, that's actually his son in the sewers. So he, like, jumps in front of the bullet, sacrificing himself and saving Hanlon's son. That was really a fucking stupid way of killing off Paulie, because he noticed immediately that his son was actually there. It's not it. And he was going to act immediately. You saw him look to Hanlon, and he still had quite a bit of time. I understand it's in slow motion, but he still had enough time to jump in front of the bullet. All he had to do was just hit his gun up. He was right next to him. All he had to do was just push his gun up. Like, it would have been actually significantly faster, and it would have been a lot safer for everyone, too, to just push his gun up or push his gun down, instead of just, like, throw himself in front of the bullet. I thought that was just, like, a really lazy way of killing him off, and I do not think that sacrifice hit as hard as I think they wanted it to. And there's a few other notable examples I could pull from for writing that I really just don't think landed, but there's no point in just going through each one of them. I just think there were quite a few instances where the writing really floundered, but like I said, for the most part, I think they did a good job narratively, and especially with the characters. It's just there are moments that had me kind of roll my eyes a little bit. But I would like to mention one more thing that I didn't like too much, and it does still kind of tie into the writing. When they're going through the explanation for the genesis of it, I just thought that was a little silly. Like, not in the way that it was presented. So basically what happens when we're learning about the origins of it, it's Hanlon who has infiltrated the mind of one of the members of the secret organization that keeps it contained. Well, contained is real loosey-goosey. It runs wild. It still does kill a ton of people, but they write it off as like acceptable losses as part of the cycle. But anyway, he's inside of that individual's mind, and he is seeing the past where when he was a kid, his aunt had asked him to recite the story of the Galoo, which is something that was a children's tale that they were all told, but it is true. The Galoo is it. And it's basically the story of how an evil spirit crash landed on Earth in a falling star, and the impact was so great that the falling star split, and thus its cage was broken, and it could, go out and kill now because it was no longer contained. And I don't mind any of that. Like, that's all cool, actually. But what it boils down to at the end, though, is that pieces of that falling star they took and turned into, like, a dagger in order to fight it. And they turned it into these artifacts that are used to keep it afraid of going past the artifacts. So that way it stays in the Western wood. And I just didn't love that. I really just didn't like the idea of having, like, just this Excalibur it weapon and these very powerful artifacts they buried in the ground to keep them locked in there. I don't know. That didn't sit super right with me. I always preferred more of the mystery of it as opposed to it now kind of boiling down to like it's a Marvel villain that they can fight with this weapon. I didn't love that direction as all. Not the biggest deal in the world because the show is still very solid. Like, I did enjoy Welcome to Derry far more than I expected to, and it has an absolute banger ending, and I'm very curious where they're going to go further with this now. Overall, I really was surprised by how entertaining the show was. So, it was a nice pleasant surprise being wrong on this show. Anyway, that's really about it. So, yeah. Wahoo! Is something you won't be saying if you see the new Super Mario Galaxy movie. It'll be more like It's not amazing, but it's not nearly as bad as a lot of people are claiming that it is. Well, I say not nearly as bad, but that's a bit too generous. It is almost as bad as some of the reviews claim. It's not very good, is the point. And this is coming from someone that liked the last Mario movie, even though a lot of people like to spit and shit on it for being, like, too simple and not, great movie overall. I'm just okay with that because it's a fucking Mario movie. I'm fine with it being simple. It was entertaining, and I think it did what it needed to do to be enjoyable for anyone. Like, not just for kids. Like, even families, I think, could go there and just have a good time. Like, the parents wouldn't, like, be miserable. With Super Mario Galaxy, though, I think adults will be miserable. Kids probably won't care because this is Jingling Keys, the movie. That's how a lot of people are describing it. It's very accurate. This movie is all over the place, just constantly, going nuts to butts here with cameo. Here's plotline. We're abandoning this plotline for new plotline, and then coming back to this one, just all over the place. It's a jumbled mess. But there's no doubt in my mind this is easily going to gross over $1 billion, and I'm confident kids are going to love it. As I said, it is just a movie where it is just always go, go, go. Here's thing happen, and then thing solve, so new thing can happen to then instantly solve to get to next thing that happened. Without a whole lot else there. So I'm very confident that kids are going to really like the film, and I also think if you're just a big fan and just want to see, Mario on the big screen again, you're not going to give a shit if it's not a typical good film per se, because it's going to show you a lot of things that you'll recognize and get excited and hype about, like a 2D segment where you'll be like, oh fuck, I remember playing something that looked just like that on my Game Boy, and look at how many things are happening in that over there. It's all colorful, and the animation is, like, extremely good. This is what I wanted. And then that's Nothing wrong with that. All power to you. But that being said, it's not like an amazing film, and there's nothing wrong with pointing that out. Yes, it is clearly designed for a young audience. This, I think, is even more of a kid's film than the last Mario Brothers movie was. But that doesn't mean that you still can't point out some of its flaws. There's nothing wrong with that. So anyway, let's just go ahead and backwards long jump here into the review. There's going to be spoilers. Fair warning if you care about that for this movie. So, I'll give you the big compliments. I'll give you a little bit of glaze here. I think the animation is beautiful. I think it is visually very nice to look at, and I think the action pops. So when there's like a fight between Bowser Jr. and Mario and Luigi and Yoshi, it's pretty enjoyable. By far the biggest superstar here, the real like shining standout is the music. I like the music in the first Mario movie, and I actually like the music in this one even more. They fucking crush it on the score here. They take iconic Mario tracks and they remix and fucking reflaffitate those puppies, and they sound great here. They're recognizable, but different, and they fit so fucking well in the movie. It is the best part of the movie is the music. And those are the only two real compliments I can give it. So, let's start with something I've already briefly dropped some breadcrumbs on, which is just how messy the structure is. There are multiple times in this film where it introduces a plot element and then abandons it. So like a big thing is in the beginning, Bowser's turning a new leaf. He's getting more in touch with his emotions. He starts becoming friends with Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi. Yoshi gets introduced very early into the film. They become best buds, inseparable. Immediately, Bowser is, he's been hit with Mini instead of Wumbo, but then eventually gets Wumbo-ized, and he still is like buddies with the crew. And Mario's of course skeptical, but Bowser actually makes a pretty big sacrifice in order to protect Mario, Luigi, and the gang. And then, immediately after making that sacrifice, where he has to work in the mines, Bowser Jr. just abducts him. And then the second he gets abducted, he's like, "Those are my friends." And Bowser Jr.'s like, "Yeah, but friends are a weakness." He's like, "You know what, you're right." And then that's it. That's the end of that whole thing that they just spent like, I don't know, a good 15 minutes building up, and you think it's going to play a role and like be something that they teeter around with. But no, it just completely gets abandoned. They wipe their ass with it. It's just like that. He goes, "Oh, you're right. Friends are cringe." And then that's the end of it. It doesn't come up again at all in the film. And there's a couple other examples of things like that where they introduce something or a plot element only to immediately get rid of it. That's just the most egregious. And another thing that keeps happening in this movie is that something will happen, and then it's like this big problem. For example, this has already been spoiled. I can't believe they dropped this before the movie came out. Fox McCloud is in this movie. Actually would have been a super hype reveal if I didn't see all the press about Fox McCloud being in this film. But he's here. He's probably the coolest character they introduce. And Fox McCloud is taking them to the planet that Rosalina's been captured, and on the way there, things kind of go tits up, and they end up crashing on another planet that seems like it's going to be a huge hurdle. Like, oh no, the spaceship is kaput. Yeah, it went kablooey, and now we're stuck here. What are we going to do? But then luckily, Luigi did like a single 5-second broadcast that the Rosalina's children picked up on, and here they come scooting in sideways right to this planet in the middle of fucking nowhere. They just come right in. Fox takes the ship, and then they go like maybe 2 blocks in the solar system to planet Bowser, which is a brand new planet that luckily is only a tiny little stroll away, just literally like maybe 25 feet away from this planet that they've crashed on, and now they have a ship so they can go there and do the final fight. It's just a whole movie that feels like it wants to speed run through things to make you point at the screen and go, "Oh, I recognize that." But nothing really connects. Like, there's some characters in here that you'll recognize from the games, maybe some boss fights. I don't want to spoil any of those, but they're in here as little cameos, but utilized in such a small capacity that it feels like such a sad, disappointing waste of these characters, where they're there for literally like a split second or a single scene, and then never utilized again. Like, a couple of the Easter eggs they put there were cool, but then they have entire characters that you'll know from the games that feel like they probably should have had a bigger role to play, but instead are just binged for the sake of showing like, oh, on the casino planet, they shot a couple of spitballs, and now they're gone. It's just, I don't know. it feels like it just wants to run through everything that you'll recognize from the games without having it actually flow in any way. Whereas the last Mario Brothers movie, even though it was like simple, it did feel like we got like a cohesive journey. At times, maybe it stumbled a little bit, but here, this movie is just always like, and then they go here, and then they teleport here, and then they get hit by a baby blaster, a baby ray that turns Mario and Luigi into babies, and they crash onto a dinosaur planet, but then they get rescued immediately, and then they go to Planet Bowser right away. It's just, I don't know, nothing to me really flows at all, so it's just disjointed, and it leads it to just feeling like really hollow and just trying really hard to capitalize off you being like, oh, I recognize that, how cool. And like I said, there are a couple Easter egg moments that are cool. Again, Fox McCloud, if it wasn't already spoiled for me, would have been like a very shocking surprise to see in this film. And he is cool in this movie. He doesn't have a lot to do. I'll go ahead and spoil that. He has like very little to do. Like he does like a bit of space combat, gets hit with the baby blaster, they crash on the dinosaur planet, and then he drives into Planet Bowser. He has maybe like 8 or 9 lines, if that. So it's like very little that he has. But I mean, he is a cool presence there. But like I said, it's just one of those things where it feels like they wanted to shoehorn in as many things as possible that you would recognize from their properties. So like even Game & Watch is here for like a very brief appearance in a fight. But you want to know who's not really here, and it's very odd decision? Rosalina. And Loomis, by extension. It's a Super Mario Galaxy movie with very, very little Rosalina in it. Like, I actually think Fox McCloud has more screen time. I haven't checked the stats or anything on it. I would wager Fox McCloud, who is a supporting character, but also, like I said, doesn't have a whole ton to contribute here. I still think Fox McCloud has more screen time and probably more lines than Rosalina. Very odd choice, I'm going to tell you right now. I don't really know what that decision was. Anyway, no real reason to keep yapping about it. It's not an amazing movie. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people are saying it is, but it's still not very good. I think it is a big step down from the last Mario Brothers movie, though. Anyway, that's really about it. See ya. I feel like a lot of people didn't even know, but a new Star Wars movie just came out today. First one to hit the big screen in, I think it's 7 years since the last one. I can't fully recall, but it's been a while. And it's Mandalorian and Grogu. Feel like there wasn't a ton of hype around it. I haven't seen a whole lot of buzz or a lot of people, biting at their nails, scratching at their neck, waiting to get their fix of Star Wars in the cinema, which if you had told me even just a decade ago that would ever be the case, I'd call you crazy, spit in your mouth, and then slap your bottom and tell you, you filthy animal, get out of here, you're crazy. But here we are. A lot of people are really tuned out of Star Wars, myself included. The Mandalorian, I never even finished season 3. I just slowly lost interest in it and never finished the series. Andor, I can't stop glazing. I'm constantly just fucking gobbling the goodness that Andor has served up and preaching the gospel. But Star Wars just hasn't had a whole lot of oomph to it in a while. So I guess Mandalorian and Grogu has just been one of those things where people just didn't even really keep tabs on it. I guess we'll see how it performs in the box office, though. Anyway, I just saw it, and it's alright. I didn't dislike it as much as a lot of other people seem to. It is truly a simple adventure that you can't think hard about, because if you do, a lot of it falls apart. And really the biggest thing about it is, it doesn't feel like I watched the movie. It feels like I watched maybe 4 episodes of a Mandalorian season that were squashed together without being broken up over the course of 4 weeks. Like, I just don't feel like this justified its existence as a movie. It feels like a tiny little arc that would have unfolded episodically. So, take for that what you will. Maybe that's exactly what you want. But for me, I would want, like, something that feels like a spectacle. Something that feels like it justifies its existence in this medium, as opposed to just being part of the TV show. And maybe that was, like, a strategic decision because they knew there'd be a lot more like hype around it as opposed to just being like part of season 4 of The Mandalorian or something. I don't really know, but it really does feel that way, where it's handful of episodes. Now, something I want to make a mention of, I saw this film in something called Screen X, which I'd never heard of in my life, but it was just the most convenient time for the film, and it happened to be Screen X. It was fucking expensive. Holy Toledo. Movie tickets are already pricey, but seeing it in Screen X, wow. And the experience was cool, I guess. So what it was you have like a big screen, normal big theater screen, but the walls outside of the theater screen, like around the auditorium, are also a screen too. So it's supposed to be more immersive. So what you're seeing on screen also expands out onto the sides, but in a way where it feels like in VR, right? Where like in VR, out of your peripheral vision, you can see more of the scene playing out in front of you. That's what it was like in Screen X, where like there was more happening on the sides. Nothing important, obviously. All of that's still on the main screen. But like you could see, more of the landscape, more of like the characters idly on the side, like doing stuff or working. It was interesting. Would I ever pay that much again to go see something in Screen X? Probably not. But I do think it was a pretty, fun novelty, I suppose. It did help elevate a couple of things. Anyway, though, let's dive into a bit of the spaghetti and meatballs here. There's going to be spoilers. Spoiler warning. The Mandalorian and Grogu follows an adventure where Mandalorian is just a fucking one-man army, and he's taking scalp, and he's working with the good guys now. Sigourney Weaver's in here, but I don't even know if she knew she was in the movie. It really feels like she didn't try at all, especially at the end where she's like the hero saving the day. She delivers her lines like she's falling asleep and is actually annoyed to even be a part of the production. I don't know why they wouldn't just ask her to like maybe put a little more gusto in there, but it seemed like she didn't want to be there at all. Everyone else seemed to be having a good time and like trying, but for some reason, she seemed miserable. I just wanted to make a mention of that. But anyway, Mando's now working with the good guys, of course. Him and Grogu are a tag team. They also have their pilot, their right-hand man, and they go out there and beat the bad guys. They're shooting and shitting, and, it's fun, actually. I like the action. There's a lot of action here, and it's good. They get a new mission. They got a new target. They've got something that they have to do with the twins, the Hutts. They are big crime syndicate. They contact the good guys, and in exchange for some information on a big ex-Imperial figure, they agree to have Mando temporarily work with them, the Hutts, to get Rada the Hutt, their nephew, the twins' nephew. So that leads us to the meat and potatoes of this, where he goes to this new world and finds Rada the Hutt, and he's yoked. This guy's fucking juiced to the gills, and he's fighting in the pits, and Mando has to try and rescue him, but he doesn't want to be rescued. Turns out he doesn't want to be anything like his father. The fact that he reminds you of fucking 4 times throughout the film, he's like, I don't want to be like Dad. I know I'm the son of Jabba the Hutt, but I hate that. And I hate him, and I'm not like him. I like when they cheer for me. Did you know they cheer for me? I like when they cheer for me. I like when they cheer for me, Mando. So no, I don't need rescuing. Ultimately, he needs rescuing. He is under contract with the target that the Hutts were going to tell the good guys about, but Mando ends up getting that information anyway. So then he gets the target, brings him back, and this ends up with the Hutts believing they've been betrayed by him. So then they hunt down Mando, getting a bounty hunter on his ass who outplays him, fucking checkmates him, separates him from Grogu, also captures Rada the Hutt. He is being tortured. And I'm sure I don't need to recap everything that happens. You could probably piece together the breadcrumbs here on where it goes. There's no big surprises here or anything. Now, the thing is, when you start actually thinking about what's unfolding, it's pretty fucking nonsensical. Also, Mando gets knocked out. He goes unconscious, I think 5 times. Unironically, I think it's 5 times. Once with gas, when he was trying to save Rada, and Rada's like, I don't want to be saved, you're not listening. So then gas comes out, knocks him out. Once when he gets electrocuted by the bounty hunter the first time outside of his house after he has Grogu, as well as like some like Babu Fink characters. I don't know what those aliens are called, but they're like basically this movie's equivalent to the fucking Minions. They just have like high pitched voices going like, "We gotta go this way, then we go that way," that kind of stuff. So he got knocked out there when the bounty hunter got him there. He then woke up on the ship to have a couple of words with the bounty hunter, got knocked out again, and then he got knocked out one more time after being poisoned by the creature under the Hutt's lair when they captured him. But I also think there was one more that I'm forgetting. So he spends a good chunk of this movie unconscious, which is, you know, makes me question, is he really the most like elite bounty hunter there is? You know what I mean? He keeps falling for it over and over again. It's like they keep getting him with the pull my finger gag. Also, I just looked it up. Babu Frick. They're Anzelins or something like that. Sorry I butchered the name, but it's hard to remember every new glup shitto that's been hitting the Disney Star Wars circuit. But yeah, they get into the mega mix here because he was, you know, consulting them, commissioning them to fix his ship. Anyway, not important. Point is, when you start like actually looking at the scenes and thinking about them, it completely falls apart. For example, Grogu has the Force. And there are so many times where him using the Force would have been unbelievably helpful. But he just doesn't. He uses it to like get some food sometimes. And then at the end of the movie, he gets it to like pick up Rada at a very important moment. So that was a good time to use the Force. But you also then have to ask yourself, well, why didn't he do that numerous other times when it really would have fucking put the kibosh on some problems they were experiencing? Another thing, the twins, the Hutts, they're fucking idiots. And they're not like meant to be idiots. They're supposed to be like scary, intimidating bad guys. But like when they have the Mandalorian, when they have Mando captured, they drop him into this pit with like a bunch of Aqua Soldier aliens. One thing I will be giving a big compliment to though is the amount of aliens you see. I think that's really hype. I always like seeing Star Wars when it's just throwing a bunch of cool new aliens at you, or like bringing aliens from way back in the day into the fold again. I think that's cool. It reminds you that it's more than just the same shit we've seen a million times. I like that. So that's actually a compliment I give it. Like these alien swimming guys that have spears, that was cool. Like they're space Atlanteans or whatever. Mando starts disposing of them. Then there's a giant dragon that pops out, this huge Leviathan sea snake. And for some reason, the Hutts let Mando keep all of his armor on. Basically impervious armor. They let him keep that for some reason. I don't know why they're letting him stay with his full fucking loadout. They take his helmet off, which is, of course, a big no-no. That's a disgrace to Mandalorians. And then when he's dropped in the pit, he doesn't have his helmet. But then they give him his helmet. They just say, here's your reward because you entertained us. You made us go haha. So they drop his helmet in there, which obviously gives him the edge. It helps get him back on his feet and be able to fight this monster. Why did they do that? They even made a point of saying how priceless that helmet is on the black market, and presumably his armor too. Why let him keep that? Why keep doing that? And it's not like they're honorable or something. Like that's never been something expressed. Like it just made no sense. The reason is because this is the Mandalorian. He's gotta have his armor. He's gotta have his helmet. So they just lazily have them do that inexplicably. And then Grogu and the Anzelins, they somehow were able to find Mando at the twins' lair. Convenient that they found him there, and then they blew up the pipe there, so that way Mando could escape. But he did get hit by the Leviathan, which poisoned him, which was killing him. And then he passes out, and Grogu then goes on his own solo adventure, where now he has to fend for himself without Mando being there, which was kind of cool to see. And another thing I really like is the puppetry. I like that it's not just CGI. I said that from the very beginning with Baby Yoda. I think that's very cool. And they do have that as well with the mechanics, the Anzelins that travel with them and became a pretty important piece of this film. They look cool. Now, when Grogu's doing his own thing, he closes up Mando's wound with the Force, which I didn't finish season 3. I don't know when Grogu got Force healing. Maybe it was in seasons 1 and 2 and I forgot at some point. I really don't know, but it doesn't instantly save him. It doesn't just revive him, give him the fucking chug jug or anything, which is good. But how he does revive him is in this desolate area, devoid of life. He happens across an alien catfish guy who's fishing, and so Grogu starts stealing his fish, and then the catfish guy decides to, for some reason, like, put his ass on the line protecting the little guy. So the bounty hunter ends up at this guy's house asking about the Mandalorian and exposition dropping, just fucking lore dumping everything about what's been going on. So now this catfish alien has the whole scoop, and he's like, so he got bit by that Leviathan dragon snake thing, yeah? That's poison, you know, he's probably gonna die from it, but here, I'm gonna whip him up the antidote real quick. Now you give him this, it might be too late, but we gotta try, right? So this guy, in the middle of nowhere, just happens to also have the antidote and all of the supplies needed to make it on hand, gives it to Grogu. Again, a creature he has no knowledge of at all, no reason to help or anything, and then he goes and gives it to Mando, which saves him. Like, there's plenty of things like that, where it's just so extraordinarily convenient and nonsensical how we're going from point A to point B, which I can suspend disbelief on, because this really feels like a film that was just meant to be, like, fun and nothing else. And I think if that's the goal, it did succeed. I was entertained, but there's nothing about this film that convinced me it's more than just a few episodes stitched together. I don't know. I didn't hate it. It was fine if you're willing to just go in there and not think and just have some fun watching Mando and Grogu and a couple of pals beat up some aliens, beat up some bad guys, shoot some guys, and that's really it. But I imagine a lot of people, especially like with the current state of Star Wars, were probably hoping for something with a bit more substance, because it has fallen out of like the cultural impact. Again, this is a new Star Wars film that I think a lot of people didn't even know was on the horizon. So I don't think Mando and Grogu is the one to really like bust it wide open again, like Star Wars is back, baby, or anything like that. That to me was Andor. Andor, I think, is the best Star Wars thing we've gotten in a long, 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 long time. It is an incredible show. This is just fine if you've got a couple hours, you don't mind, you know, sitting there and watching some action and eating popcorn and going into a bit of autopilot mode for it. That's really about it. See ya. Yeah, it's good. Pluribus is the latest from Vince Gilligan, and he proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he just can't miss. He is just him. It's incredible how everything he's made, I like. More like Vince gurgling, because I am gargling and swallowing everything he puts out with a smile on my face. This man just knows how to tickle me. He is able to put out things that I just really, really enjoy. The only thing he's made that I can even think of where I had, like, multiple complaints was El Camino, and that really did feel like it was kind of more of a paycheck as opposed to a passion project that he wanted to see through. But even that wasn't bad or anything. Anyway, though, enough Gilligan glaze here. Let's talk about Pluribus. I think it is such a fascinating concept that is explored beautifully. In a nutshell, I'll avoid spoilers for now, but of course, I get into spoilers, so I'll give you a warning when we get there. The show is basically about an invasion, but not in the traditional sense that you're thinking of, where tiny green aliens come down, probe our butts, and suck our tits and everything. This is an invasion in the sense where everyone's mind on the planet all of a sudden joins together into a huge hive mind. After a mysterious discovery at the beginning of episode 1, and a set of circumstances that lead to a spread of some sort, everyone joins into this giant collective. And there is no longer any I, there is only we. And everyone on the planet, save for 13 survivors, are now part of that collective. And they're basically omniscient, since they have the collective knowledge of all, 7 billion people except for these 13. And since they're spread out all over the planet and information hits all of them instantaneously, they can basically do and get anything like that, like magic. And the 13 survivors now inhabit this world with this not human entity that has taken over the humans, but it's like really nice. It's like super fucking polite. And we follow Carol Sturka, who is one of the 13, and she now we're gonna get into spoilers. Now it's spoilers time. Spoiler warning. She lost someone very dear to her. And she hates what's happened here because it is the death of individuality. These are not really people anymore. It's now a thing. And she doesn't like that, and she's fearful of when they eventually force her to join as well, she would lose herself. It's a really, really interesting concept. And Carol Sturka is played by Ray Seahorn, who's extremely talented. I'm sure if you've seen Better Call Saul, you already know that. But she crushes it in this role. She is alone. She is miserable. She's been through so much, and she continues to try and fight against this entity, and even tries to team up with the other survivors whom just aren't interested in it. They like this because this entity that has now joined the consciousness of all the humans on the planet is so fucking nice, so sweet. Granted, it's a big old dweeb, it's a huge twerp, basically talking to a Redditor 24/7, but it genuinely wants to make the 13 survivors happy. It will do anything they ask. It can't lie to them. It cannot hurt them. It will actually go out of its way, sacrificing people to help these survivors be happy. And even in one of the episodes, Carol's pushing them to their limits. What if I asked for an atom bomb? Would you give me that? And they're like, well, we wouldn't be happy about it, but we would. And it's just so interesting because it's understandable why the other survivors wouldn't really view this as a negative thing, because it is world peace. Nobody's getting hurt anymore. There's no dying. There's no conflict. It's complete tranquility and just infinite, sunshine and rainbows. But it's not real people anymore. It's now just this thing that has their minds and their souls. They're basically puppets, but they're very nice puppets. And the show is just so well written, which I've come to expect from Vince Gilligan's work. It is always impressive just how tight the writing is with its characters, and especially the narrative here, where even when there is something dark, a big reveal that Carol Sturka unveils about this entity, it's then able to be argued from their perspective, well, this is why we do that. We do that because X, Y, and Z. And when you hear their side of it, it's shit, that's pretty understandable. It's still hard to view them as evil bad guys, even though they are. They non-consensually did take over the entire planet's consciousness to join it together, because that's how it spreads, that's how it survives, and it believes it's a blessing. It believes it's doing everyone a favor because everyone that joins is apparently extremely happy about it. So they're viewing it as this gift, but there are things about it that are weird and sketchy and even downright unforgivable. And when those get unveiled and Carol brings it up to the other survivors or to the hive mind, they have really strong arguments for why they have to do that to survive, because not only can they not hurt the survivors, they can't hurt any living creature. They won't step on an ant. They won't swat a mosquito. They won't pick a fucking apple. So it's so fascinating watching them explore this concept, because it is a bad thing. All the people on the planet no longer have their own agency. So if one of the survivors, one of them we see, asks them hey, I want you, all fucking 20 of you women, I want you all to come over here so we can fuck. They can't say no. They have to say yes, and they willingly do so because they love the survivors so much. They say that many times, no matter what gets done to them. Even Carol does some really bad things to them that you would think they'd want to strike back or stop her from doing. They don't. They still love her. And even when they separate, it's not on bad terms, and they still will do anything to provide for her, make her happy. It's just so, I can't express enough just how interesting it is. And of course, you're constantly wondering, is there a way to fix it? And as the episodes progress, there are some breadcrumbs about oh, maybe there is a way to fix this. And how are they going to figure out how to do that? There's only 13 of them on the planet, and no one wants to cooperate with Carol, except for a character that finally enters the fold that we've been introduced to earlier, named Manousos, who is a great fucking character. This guy is from the second this happened, he's immediately, nose in the books trying to figure out how to stop it. He isolates from the hive mind, the others. He doesn't talk to them, doesn't interact with them. He is just constantly trying to figure out what he can do to fix this and save the world. Eventually, he gets some tapes from Carol, and now, at the season's conclusion, they are going to team up to try and figure out how to stop this, how to fix this, and bring everybody back. Because it seems like an impossible task. Yet, there were little glimmers of hope that there is a way, and Penguinz0 got very creative with exploring and understanding how this joining worked in the first place. And I'm so curious to see where that goes in season 2, which I just read isn't exactly right around the corner, which is a little disappointing. But anyway, I have very few complaints about this show. As you can tell, I really did enjoy it a lot. It's not a show I think everyone's going to like. It is a slow burn. A lot of this is very much spending time with Carol Sturka, processing everything and grieving what she's lost and trying to come to terms and trying to figure out how to live in this new world while also trying to fight back against them. And then also the confusion that comes with it because they are extremely nice. And none of the other survivors seem to think it's a bad thing. They view it as like the best thing that ever happened to them and the planet as a whole. So like, then it gets confusing with, well, maybe she's in the wrong. And even you as the viewer, since you keep seeing how nice they are and how they're able to explain things that would ordinarily be like inexplicable, you start to wonder, well, are they even really that evil in the first place? Like, it is just really well done. I think they have crushed it. And I really like Penguinz0's character as well. I know I'm highlighting Carol because she is the main character, but Penguinz0 is great. Like, I think he has been such an interesting contrast to Carol's journey, where Carol from the very beginning immediately was like cooperating with them, not because she liked them or anything, but because she was trying to understand more about them directly and try and figure out how to fight them. Penguinz0's completely on his own, fucking pulled himself up by his own bootstraps, dusted off his shoulder, just got to business, and anytime they even tried to interact with him, he told them to fuck right off. He would even threaten to, like, kill them. He wants nothing to do with them, and he tries his best to avoid taking things from other people, even though the people aren't there anymore. So he chooses not to. So instead of flying from Paraguay all the way to Carol, which he could do with the others, even offering it to him, saying like, hey, we can get you there in a couple of hours. He's like, nope, you can go kick rocks, eat dirt. I'm going to make this long journey and hike through extremely dangerous conditions here to do it myself. It's very cool. I like the show a lot. Like I said, it's not going to be for everybody, and I know that. Now, all this being said, I do have a pretty big complaint. Since there are so few survivors in the show, there's not a lot of opportunity for characters to be interacting with one another. Now, of course, there's a lot of individuals from the hive mind, but that's all the same character. That is one character, even though it's got a bunch of different faces. So even though Carol spends a lot of time with, Zosha from the hive mind, and interacts with other characters from the hive mind, she's still interacting with just that same character. Same with all the other survivors we see interacting with the hive mind. That is still just one character. So I feel like we miss out on a lot of character interactions because it's mainly Carol and the hive mind and nobody else until Penguinz0 gets there, and then we get to see Penguinz0 interact with the hive mind. But again, the hive mind is one character. So instead of in Breaking Bad or something where there's a, big cast of characters that you see interact pretty often, here, not so much. And even from the survivor side, outside of Penguinz0 and Carol, there's really only one other survivor that we see a handful of times, and he's just basically the pervert, this is great, I get to fuck all the time, and I get to live in Las Vegas, and everything's at my disposal, like Air Force One, yippee. Other than that, the only other survivor we see is one that is very energetic, enthusiastic about joining the hive mind, and that's it. And they don't interact. We don't see a whole lot of interaction. So that was just something that kind of left me feeling a little underwhelmed with how little we see characters themselves talk to each other. But that's also kind of the point. Carol is alone. And even with the hive mind being around, that's not really a person there. You're still alone. It's kind of like using ChatGPT as your best friend. It's there to just make you feel good and just do what it can to keep you hooked on it. That's kind of like interacting with the hive mind in Pluribus. It is literally there to just always be your yes man and nothing else to make you try and feel good. And that's it. So you don't get real character interaction, so it does feel very isolating, which I think is a good thing, but also from a viewer's perspective, I just would have liked to seen more with characters interacting. And now that Manousos and Carol are like teaming up, I'm sure we will. And the little bits and pieces we got of that at the end of the season were good. I'm just hoping for more going forward. That's all. That's like my only like complaint about season 1 of Pluribus. Overall, I think it was just a great series. I highly recommend it, but I don't think everyone's going to like it. It is slow. But for me, that's not a big deal, so Pluribus I thought slapped. That's about it. So yep. Yeah, the movie was good. And I'm surprised to be saying that, because I went into this movie a little Scrooge-esque, you know, a little bah humbugging, because from the first trailer, I thought, like, yeah, this could be entertaining, but, you know, the last big screen Predator film, Predator 2018, was unbelievably horrible. That was complete dog shit, but I will always defend this. I think Predator 2018 is one of the more fun bad movies we've had in a long time. It is such a piece of trash in all of the right ways that it loops around to being entertaining. So bad, it's good. It is a film where the predator species is harvesting the best DNA from all of the other species they hunt in order to make themselves stronger, so they splice it in to become, you know, even stronger to level up. And they choose humanity, and you're led to believe that they're choosing us because of our strong soldiers, but no, it turns out they're actually hunting our main character's son because he's autistic, and they want to harvest his autism to make themselves stronger. So they came to Earth to take our autism. Really entertainingly shit film. But it is, at its core, a shit film. So Predator Badlands, I didn't have the highest hopes for, especially considering I didn't like the new design of our main character here, Deck. I also didn't love the idea of the Predator being the good guy. Like, how can you really spin that in a way where you give a fuck? But, in the context of the film, his look really works because he is the runt of his clan. And he is, like, about to be called because he is weak. And they're insulting him, this and that. So him looking so different from all the other Predators does make sense in the context of the film. And it works, and you buy into it. And I also really think that they do make you care about him. Like, having him be the main character and the good guy, I'll put in quotes, it works, and it doesn't feel like super cheesy or super stupid. Which I was pleasantly surprised by, because again, conceptually, I don't love the idea of taking the Yautja and making him more human throughout a hunt. I just feel like we don't need to make every single character that you ever see in film have all these human traits. I think it's very cool if they're super different from humans across the board. So, like, the idea, I don't love, but they execute it really well to the point where I thought it was really well done, and I actually enjoyed it. And you know what you will enjoy is some canned goof juice, baby. That's right. Gamer Sups is back with some canned goof juice, this time sugar-free. It's available right now, so go get some sugar-free goof juice in a can, baby. What I will say gets a little cattywampus, though, is the humor. So, you can see from the trailer, he does team up with a synth. It's Elle Fanning's character, Thea, and the two of them basically form a little tag team in order for him to complete his task. And they actually banter occasionally. Like, I wouldn't quite say it's MCU humor, but it's just like little jokes and goofs here. Which I do think is a little weird because, I don't know, I feel like the Yautja probably wouldn't be so chummy while on this sacred hunt after everything that Deck had been through. I don't think he would be such an open book, ready to just start, like, joking and, like, you know, nudging a friend here. It just feels a little odd. I don't even think it's, like, poorly done or anything, but I just think that's a little, you know, a little much. Another thing that I was pretty concerned with is that this is PG-13, which I didn't know until I got to the theater. And watching the film, it doesn't feel like a PG-13 movie because there is so much gore, dismemberment, and death and destruction, but it's synths. So, and I'm going to avoid spoilers for now, we'll get into spoilers in a moment. A lot of other synths are there doing research on this planet where Deck is on his hunt. So he's killing a lot of, like, aliens and stuff, but it's not red blood, it's like Covenant blood from Halo. You know, you got all kinds of different colored blood, yellow and shit, and the synths, of course, aren't red blood. So even though the kills are really gruesome with, like, heads being collapsed, impaled, ripped off, like entire spines getting ripped off, there's never any blood, so it's able to get away with a PG-13 rating, I guess, which is cool. I mean, I'm still glad that it's so gruesome, but I will say, it does make it feel a little weird because since they are synths, you're expecting them to be smart. But all the synths, aside from a couple, are actual fucking idiots. Which to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense because why are these robots so dumb? And like, they even show fear sometimes. Like just random grunts, and I don't think they were, supposed to have that emotion there. Like, I understand there are some synths in the universe that do, but here, like, just random ones. Like, they're all really dumb. And I just don't think that computes here, because why would they all be so bad at, like, deducing the most basic things? Like, there's actually a scene here where they go undercover to try and, stealthily break through enemy lines here, and the synth even stops one of them and actually falls victim to, like, a Jedi mind trick. Except I'm being very generous with that. It is literally, they're just telling a very comical lie to the synth's face, and he's believing it. And they eventually get the leg up on him because of it. So, like, why are they synths when they are this stupid? The only reason is so they can get away with a PG-13 rating and still have a ton of blood and gore. It's just, when you stop and think about it, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense why all of them are so dumb. They're robots. And I know it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it is just a little weird. Unless these are like fucking first generation Roombas or something, just like throwaway dumb idiot bots that they brought to this planet for an extremely crucial mission. But yeah, if you were worried about this movie being like really watered down because of its rating, I don't think that's really a fear you need to have going into it. I think they do a really good job with the action. In fact, I think the vast majority of this movie is action sequences. He's either hunting creatures on this planet, being hunted himself, or killing synths. So there is pretty much non-stop action happening, and I think it's all really, really cool. Like, they didn't pull any punches, even though it is a PG-13 rated film. So I thought they crushed it in that department. Now, before wrapping it up, I want to briefly get into some spoilers to talk about some other stuff I thought was really cool, but it is a spoiler, so here's a spoiler warning. I really liked Thea, and I really liked seeing more of the Yautja culture. I thought it was very cool to see the Yautja home planet and seeing Dek fight against other Yautja. So him versus father at the very end, I think, was super hype, where he, easily, well, not, I guess I won't say easily, but he overpowers the Royal Guard. I'm assuming they're the Royal Guard, considering they're his father's right-hand men. And the way that he evolved after his time on the most dangerous planet we've seen yet, the death planet Jenna, was very cool. And then his showdown with his father that mirrored what happened to his brother, basically. And then he says, I have my own clan, I think was a really fun conclusion, and the way they set up for a further Predator film was very hype with his mother showing up. I thought that was so fucking cool, and I think they did a great job with the action. And I really liked the Yautja, and I'd love to see more from it. And I also, like I said, like Thea. I think Thea was a very cool character to see in here as well, where she was able to kind of humanize is probably not the right word, but help Dek see that maybe not everything he'd been taught about the Yautja is the only way to live. Maybe there's more to it than just hunting alone. Maybe it's worth hunting in a pack like wolves and protecting instead of just killing, that kind of thing, which I know can be very cliche, but I think it works really well in this film. So I liked it a lot. I liked it significantly more than I expected. I think it's very hype, and I do hope there is a follow-up to it. Hopefully there is a sequel where we see more of Dek and more of Thea and more of Bud. I think it was very fun. So anyway, it was a good movie. That's about it. So yeah. The new Running Man movie just came out, and I've seen a lot of people aren't loving it. It hasn't been getting the standard Edgar Wright glaze. A lot of people have been saying that it's just not amazing. I haven't really seen anyone call it like outright bad or anything, because it's not, we're not talking about like a War of the Worlds level catastrophe here of a film or anything. Most people are just saying that it's kind of underwhelming and mid. And I've just now watched it, so I'm here to tell you definitively, that's kinda right. It's far from a bad film. It's just a very standard one. Like, it's very generic. It's an action film that has some very good action sequences, but it has quite a lot of problems. And if you are someone that's a big fan of this director's work, if you are an Edgar Wright superfan, I would wager my left shoe that this will probably be towards the bottom of your list of his movies. This is a shockingly studio-safe production, it feels like. It doesn't really inject any of the creative personality that his films are known for. It really feels like more of a paycheck than a passion, which, all I'm saying right here, probably doesn't matter if you don't really care who the director is. Like, if you're not the biggest Edgar Wright enthusiast with dick in hand for every single thing that he slaps his name on, it probably won't matter to you because you're not going to be holding it to this higher standard of what his previous films have had. And I think that's totally fine. But I think pretty much anyone that watches this will walk away being like, oh, that was an enjoyable action flick, but nothing beyond that. So this film is not at all related to the 80s Arnold movie, which I haven't seen in a long time, but when I was a kid, I remember really liking that movie. And this one is very different, and I think that's probably a good thing. As I understand it, this borrows more from the Stephen King novel that it's based on, which maybe fans of the original works will appreciate. But I just think that by incorporating a lot of these elements that I imagine were present in the book, it leads to a little bit of bloat in this film where it starts to kind of have these pacing issues where it kind of just wants to like stumble through scenes to get to like a bigger moment without like building a real connection to characters. Like, it feels like it was more focused on getting things from the book onto the big screen without really making it flow super well. And to kind of elaborate further on what I mean by that, a lot of Ben Richards' survival in The Running Man is kind of out of his own hands, where he just happens to luckily run into someone that is far better equipped to win this game for him and is able to kind of like piggyback off of their ideas for survival and kind of just go along with their plan, which I imagine in the book is probably not exactly how it plays out, but in the film here, it just feels like a very convenient plot armor for him, where he just happens to run into these guardian angels that literally sacrificed their lives in order for him to win The Running Man. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but this is what I'm saying, where it feels like it has these issues where it gives you this action, and then it wants to give you the next part with the action where it's like a couple days further, but in order to do that, you have to meet this character quickly, like in an alley that gets you to that point, and you don't spend a lot of time with that character. And then you get to the next action scene, and then you have to meet another character because that's going to get him a couple more days into the future for the next action thing. And if that character dies, you don't really care because you don't fucking know anything about that character. It just feels a little wacky when it comes to its pacing in that regard, which makes it feel a little underwhelming when a lot of the times Ben Richards isn't the one who's like really beating the network. So I've kind of already dove into some complaints, but like I said, I think it is a fun action movie, and I think the entire premise is very fun. So it's set in a world where barbarism is entertainment now with this thing called The Running Man, where you have this team of 3 that gets chosen, and then they use basically AI or whatever technology they have in that universe to fake all of these videos and stuff to paint them as horrible, terrible people, so that way all the world roots against them and wants them to die. And the objective of the game is to survive while they're being hunted by their fellow civilians that hate these people because they're led to believe that they're scum of the earth, truly irredeemable garbage, and they're also being hunted by hunters who are professional killers. And again, the goal is just to survive. If they survive, they get $1 billion. They basically get set for life. And the objective is to last a month for our main character, Ben Richards. We get a little of his backstory. He and his wife have a daughter who's sick, but because Ben tried to be a good person and report like some injustices in his business, he's been blacklisted across every job imaginable because the network that owns The Running Man owns the entire country. So he can't get a job, and he can't pay for the medicine for his daughter that would save her life. It's the flu, basically. And he can't even pay for that because he can't get a job. It just leads to him signing up for The Running Man in order to go through this death gauntlet. And the movie is very on the nose about its message with all the propaganda and how it like alters all the videos to make people hate each other. And so that way it like ignites this fire. So they want to kill Ben and the other two people that are chosen with him. And it's like a very fun world that it builds here, but I just don't think it explores it overly well. And it doesn't do a good job of like balancing humor with seriousness. This feels like a movie, and I imagine in the book too, that needed to be more serious. Like, the wackiness in Arnold's 80s film, I think, fits in that context of The Running Man, which is drastically different from this one. Like, some of the campiness in Arnold's, I don't think should have been tried to, emulate in this 2025 one. It just feels like a tonal, like, clash there. It feels like you need to buy into the seriousness of everything happening in that world, but then that's undercut with every character Ben meets, and even Ben himself, joking pretty frequently. Like, I wouldn't say it's like MCU levels of quips and quirkiness. There were just a few times where it felt really out of place for that. Like, it didn't do a good job of weaving that in there in a way that didn't feel jarring, especially because the humor wasn't really landing in my eyes. Like, I don't think many of the jokes were knocking it out of the park, we'll say. Like, I don't think it was worth sacrificing some of the seriousness that I think probably should be there to make you really care and buy into it for the sake of like a quick line or two that's a silliness. But it's not the biggest deal in the world because the movie really relies on two key factors. Its action sequences, which I do think are good. I think they are filmed well. I think they are really exciting action moments in this movie, and there is a lot of them. And two, Glenn Powell as the main character, Ben Richards. Glenn Powell does a great job. I think he was a really good action movie star here. I think he did a good job of being someone you can root for and also being a psychopath that does have like the natural, X factor to make him realistically have a chance of winning this game against all of these experienced killers and just literally every stranger on the street. So he does a good job of being like a dad that you want to see win and get back to his family, as well as like this psycho that you're really excited to see kill some hunters. I think it was very good performance from Glenn Powell here. So overall, I did enjoy the movie. I think it is an entertaining action film. No, it's not the strongest action movie or anything like that. And yes, admittedly, it is one of Edgar Wright's weaker films. But I still was entertained. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah. Conjuring: The Last Rites. Supposedly the final Conjuring film. Mainline film, I think. I'm sure they're going to keep the door open to spin-offs because this franchise prints money. Even the stinkiest garbage that spawns from it, like The Nun and The Nun 2. Oh, Jiminy Christmas. I saw both of those films and I couldn't tell you a single scene in them. I'm going to get off on a side tangent. I don't need to blabber about that. I'm here to yap about the final Conjuring movie. Is it a banger, or does it kind of go out sad with a little whimper? Well, sorry to say, sports fans, I don't necessarily think it's like a high note. I don't think it's bad. It's definitely better than the third one. The Devil Made Me Do It. Again, that's a movie I watched, and I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened there. Fucking devil came in and put poop in my pants. I have no idea. But I can at least say this one I will probably remember. So that's good. I don't think it's like amazing though. It just follows the exact same formula every Conjuring movie has followed. It doesn't try to switch it up in regards to its scares. But where I think the movie actually does a good job is its character work. It has over a decade of building Ed and Lorraine Warren. So by this point, I'm pretty invested in these characters. I actually do care about them. I actually still remember seeing the first Conjuring movie in theaters, and it was a very good time. It was one of like the few horror movies at the time that I went to a movie theater to watch. I wasn't seeing movies as actively back in 2013 when that puppy dropped, and it was fun with my friends. So, like, I do like the franchise. I just think it kind of became almost like a parody of itself. It just is so formulaic at this point. It just feels like they do it because they know it'll make them money, not necessarily because they want to. But in this film, I can at least say it seems like they wanted to send this movie off as like a love letter to these characters they've built for over a decade, and I appreciate that. That is definitely the standout of this movie. Ed and Lorraine Warren get a lot of fleshing out. They get a lot of time devoted to just seeing them interact with each other, and their daughter Judy, who is a very big character in this film as well. Given the circumstances of her birth with demonic entities nearly killing her, that demonic entity is the only one Ed and Lorraine had ever run from, and now they gotta square off again, throw up in some pugilistic combat. A biblical smackdown ensues to save their daughter's soul. They do make a weird decision, though, where the main scary center, like the headquarters of Fright, which is a Pennsylvania home of the Smurls, based on, like, a case from the 80s with the Smurls claiming that their house was haunted and all of that. They actually don't get involved in that until, like, I don't know, 30 minutes, 40-ish minutes left of the film. Like, for the vast majority of this film, you just kind of see the Warrens hanging out, which is actually kind of okay because, like I said, I kind of care about the characters at this point, and seeing Ed come to terms with getting older and, like, them dealing with retirement and not being as popular as they once were and trying to figure out, like, well, what's next? What's this next chapter in our life? It was actually kind of interesting. Like, I found myself caring, which is good. But of course, it's a horror movie. Like, that's not going to be where they put all their eggs in. It's obviously going to mainly be about the scares, which they don't do anything different with. Every single scene plays out exactly the same when it comes to trying to get you on edge. They go into a room in the Smurl house, and something's a little off. Wait a minute. The doll's moving around, but I just set the doll over there. Why is the doll moving around? Then the doll stops. The music is getting tense. She goes to pick up the doll. Everything stops. No sound. They stare at each other. Sets the doll down. You're expecting a jump scare. No jump scare. Then she turns around. Bing! Bang! Boom! Huge noise! Big eruption of noise because there's a scary face there now. It's just lame. It's not scary. It's not even, like, startling anymore at this point. It's just kind of sad. Like, I get jump scares are always going to be integral to, like, a mainstream horror movie. I understand that, and it doesn't bother me. In fact, I have even argued in support of jump scares being present in horror movies, because I do think there is, like, that tension that builds up and a jump scare coming through to, like, cash in on it and even be like this release of all that tension. Like, it can be a very good tool. But here, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't work. You've seen every single setup before. And even in this film, they do the exact same setup every single time with no deviation at all. I mean it. Every single jump scare is that exact formula I just laid out there. Like, to a T. It's just so played out, and it seems like they wanted to do something a bit more creative when it comes to cinematography. There are some shots in here that I found myself thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. I wonder what they're going to do with it. Oh, yep, no, here it comes. It's just going to be another generic jump scare. And it's a shame, because they do have some cool-looking shots here. But they then just, instead of, like, doing something unique with it, they just then start going back down the tried-and-true formula that is so played out with, like, a big boo moment. Another thing I am so beyond tired of, and it's not just The Conjuring that was guilty of this sin, it's a very standard horror cliche when it comes to possession films. They set up the demon, like this presence, as like a very powerful creature. Granted, all it ever really does is like show itself doing like a big smile in like a reflection or something to like startle someone, or it can like throw a chair or close a door or flicker the lights on and off like Nosferatu from SpongeBob. The point is, it's supposed to be like really strong. And in this movie, it does showcase some like real big power. It can trap people in a genjutsu, and it has people even kill themselves while like in this like fugue state it traps them in. Yet, when it comes to like the final climactic battle, we're getting into spoilers, obviously. Big spoiler warning, here it is. Just like in other Conjuring movies, where it's like the big showdown between the Warrens and the demon, it always just lets it happen. And it's not just in The Conjuring. Like, every horror movie with the demonic possession, it's like the demon is the most, like, bumbling fucking moron hell had to offer. Like, it just refuses to use its power to save itself or, like, stop the threat. It just lets it happen. It's like it enjoys being thwarted. It's just part of, like, the fun. It's like its favorite pastime is losing. Just being a colossal fucking loser. So, like, This demon has shown that it has the ability to trap people in these states. And it does it to the Warrens. It does it to someone else that kills themselves. And then, when the Warrens are like directly fighting it, it doesn't. It stops doing that. It no longer wants to trap them or isolate them or anything like that. It just lets them work together to read the scripture to beat it. And like just stop it in its tracks. But not only that, let's say maybe they were just so mentally strong that it cast out the demon's ability to grab hold of their mind. Okay, fair enough. But it also showed that it had the ability to seal doors. Like literally just stop doors from working, close things at will. In the scene where it possesses Judy, it takes Judy to the attic to hang her. And while they have Judy under their control and are hanging Judy, well, the Warrens just climb into the attic and stop it because the demon left the ladder to the attic down. Instead of sealing the attic, which would have 100% been checkmate, it just leaves it down there. And then after they free Judy, then it seals the attic. So after it has already lost hold of Judy and its plan stopped, then it decides to seal the attic. Why wouldn't it just do that to make sure Judy is as isolated from everyone as possible so they cannot get to her? It makes no sense. For these movies to work, they have to like nerf all of the demon's thinking processes at the end of the film so that way the final battle can happen. Because if the demon just did what it was already doing throughout the film, which was basically just like tormenting and like making people miserable for fun, but even if it was doing like that when it was trying to enact its plan of killing Judy, it would have succeeded if it just kept doing like sealing the attic or like making people trip downstairs and confuse them on where things were or what's real and what's not. But it just decides not to. It just decides, who gives a fuck? Like, I just wish they would write a more satisfying fight with the demon that doesn't rely on just like pure luck that it happens to be a fucking imbecile that they're dealing with from hell. Like the devil of dummies. Like, it'd be better if there was like an actual outsmarting of the demon or something, but there never is. It's just, like, Ed and Lorraine Warren, they go into this house with no fucking plan at all. They just go in there and they're like, oh man, there's definitely a demon here. Alright, let's just wander around aimlessly, all split up. That ought to do it. And like, even when the demon is like fighting them, they do nothing to fight back. Like, he doesn't even like read scripture or anything until like the very end, and then the demon blows up the scripture. Like, why didn't it just do that in the first place? Again, why not just do it when they first get there or something? Or when, like, he was separated from the book? It's just, I don't know, it's so dumb. Again, you just have to fully suspend your disbelief and just stop thinking in order for, like, the final battles to be, like, palatable. And it's all, I also think it's just kind of cringe, too. Like, when the possession happens, now all of a sudden Judy can, like, force push people, and she just starts talking shit. That's, like, the big thing is, like, now they talk shit. All of them just, like, I don't know, treat it like an Xbox Live lobby, but like really tame. Like they're not even like mean. They're just like, you're ugly. People think you stink. Like that's the shit talk here in this movie. It's like, okay, come on. Anyway, though, I'll drop that and move on to something else I'm really tired of from The Conjuring, Annabelle. Just let it rest. Jesus Christ, I'm so tired of Annabelle always playing some kind of pivotal role in every Conjuring film. Somehow it always ties back to Annabelle. Goodness gracious. In this film, narratively it makes sense because Judy's here. Obviously, given the history of Judy and Annabelle, I get it. But you didn't need Annabelle this front and center here again. It's just stopped being scary at this point. It's become almost like a glup shitto from Star Wars where like Conjuring fans are supposed to point at the screen, "Oh, Annabelle's here!" I guess it's not really like glup shitto because Annabelle's like the fucking Darth Vader of the Conjuring franchise, but like it's there just so people will point and be like, "Oh, Annabelle! Yeah!" And to me, I'm just tired of it. I'm so fucking tired of it. But now that you've heard a lot of negativity from me about this film, overall, I don't think it's like a bad movie. Like, I was entertained. I don't regret seeing it. And it did feel like, you know, somewhat emotional to know that the franchise, at least the mainline franchise, is done with this film here. Supposedly. I guess we'll see if they actually commit to it. Hollywood says that shit all the time, only to dust it off like two or 3 years later. But even still, it doesn't change that I actually did care about these characters. And I do think the movie tackled them in a very good way. I really liked seeing them try and, you know, work together to figure out, well, what's next in life, you know? Getting older. You know, this kind of thing. I thought they did a good job character-wise. And like I said, overall I was entertained. I guess I just really wanted this film to just like actually be a banger and make me feel the same way I felt with the first Conjuring movie, where at the time it did feel like fresh. It felt like it was doing something kind of special. This one just feels like it's walking the same path, and it's more than content to just do the same things again and again and again and again. When it comes to like the horror of it, I just would have liked to see it try and spread its wings and do something a little different, especially in regards to its ending. I'm really tired of like the anime battle with the demon, but it's like the worst possible anime battle. Like I would have much rather they thought of a little different spin to do there for the conclusion. Anyway, though, overall, it was a fine movie. I enjoyed it. I think most people are probably going to be satisfied with it, would be my guess. Like, if you already like the Conjuring movies, you'll probably like this one. It is better than the last one for sure. That's really about it. So, yeah. Primate, a new horror movie about a chimpanzee with rabies that starts killing an entire house party. Is it good? I mean, kinda, I suppose. I saw that this film debuted with overwhelming enthusiasm and like really high scores, so I thought for a moment that the trailers were deceiving and this wasn't like a really simple movie. It's not just, a slasher film where the bad guy is a chimpanzee. There must be like a lot of depth or something, like a very complex onion to peel apart. After seeing it, I could tell you it is a slasher with the chimpanzee taking pleasure in just killing people having a house party. I'm a little surprised at how high the reviews are. I think maybe people just appreciate the unapologetic nature of just how simple a movie this is. Anyway, though, this film is every horror cliche you could possibly find in a slasher put into here, but with a new Fortnite skin on it. And I gotta tell you, the new skin does make it more entertaining. It is, like, actually very silly to see, like, an evil chimpanzee become fucking ghost face here, like even trying to scare and torment the people that he's killing. So there's a scene where he's got like an iPad that can like verbalize for him. So he starts spamming Lucy, bad, Lucy, bad, Lucy, bad, Lucy, bad, right before like jumping on her from the fucking top turnbuckle to like, go crazy on her. But overall, the film doesn't do anything you haven't seen a million times before, with characters making the stupidest decisions. And I know I say that for so many horror movies, but it's because it's so common. In this one, I don't think a character even accidentally makes a good decision. Anyway, though, I've already kind of dove into the meat and potatoes without even giving you, like the actual overview here. Obviously, we're going to be getting into spoilers. Here's your spoiler warning. So the movie is about a family that has a pet chimpanzee named Ben. Ben has been trained from the mother, who was a linguistics expert, to communicate with them. The mother has passed away, so now it's just the daughters and the dad. And one of the daughters is finally coming home after a long time away, and she brings her friend, who brings her friend, and they meet two dudes on the plane who are like your quintessential frat douchebag party, like, titties, a beer, yes! That is all they are. And they meet them on the plane. Then they go to Lucy's house. She's our main character. And Lucy's father is about to go away because it's an important deal that he's got to do. So even though his daughter's finally home, he can't really stay and celebrate. So it's Lucy, her sister, and Lucy's friends. And they have a house party because Papa's not there anymore. So they said, it's time for beer and weed. So they have a house party because the house is all to themselves. We meet Ben, who unfortunately got in a little bit of a tussle with a mongoose. And the mongoose had rabies. Then Ben escapes from his enclosure after murdering one of the doctors that was coming to check on him. He rips his face off. The gore in this movie is pretty impressive. Like, I know it's a lower budget film, but it actually looked pretty solid. It's not just some like super lazy low budget CGI that you'd find on a CW show or anything. I looked it up. It's practical. It's an actor in a suit with an animatronic face for the chimpanzee. So it looks good. And it's not like, very cheap suit or anything. Don't be picturing that scene from SpongeBob where he gets him in the sack and starts beating the devil out of him. Like, it is a decent looking film. And the kills are pretty brutal. Like, Ben rips someone's jaw off, like, straight off their face. Like, and it doesn't look like, dog shit PS2 graphics or anything. And that's pretty much the whole movie. I basically described the entire story. It is, they were throwing a party because dad was out of town, Ben's got rabies, and now he just wants to kill everybody. So they're trying to survive the night. And boy howdy, let me tell you, they do a fucking terrible job at surviving. They are worse at that than mosquitoes. And those stupid bastards fly into electric bug zappers. It is crazy just how many awful decisions these characters make. So, for example, when they first start to recognize something is wrong with Ben, he's getting aggressive. He bites one of the sisters, and she's like bleeding out, basically. They jump in the pool right afterwards because they correctly deduce that Ben can't swim. So they get in the pool, and then Ben gets his iPad out and he starts just saying, dead, 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 taunting them and trying to circle them. And they're just floating in this pool for a while. Eventually, Ben ambushes them, so he climbed over the top of the pool and then dropped on the other side to scare them and try and grab one of them, but fails. And he's just sitting on that edge, and the edge of the pool is right by a cliff. So the only guy here at this party decides he's going to be the big shot hero, and he comes up with a plan to push Ben off the side. And when he goes to push Ben off the side, Ben basically just flips him over instead, and then he falls to his death and has his head explode on a rock down below. Then Ben comes up and starts laughing, like maniacal laughter, like a comic book villain. Why would the guy think that the best choice would be to push the chimpanzee? The chimpanzee is 1,000,000 times stronger than him. That was only ever going to end in disaster. I don't understand that plan, because they had just discussed that he probably has rabies, that's probably what's causing this, and they know he can't swim, and they would probably know that water would frighten him, and he's on the edge of a pool, on the edge of a cliff. If he had instead just started splashing water at him, Ben probably would have freaked out and fallen off the cliff. But instead he decides to go for a Goldberg spear on him, which ends with him dying. I don't know why he wouldn't just splash him with water first. But anyway, I don't need to get hung up on just how terrible the decisions were from the crew here on trying to survive. Every decision they made was counterintuitive to surviving. If their goal was to be alive, they did everything in their power to ensure that couldn't happen. But I have to call out one inexplicable scene. So those two dudes on the plane that I briefly mentioned, the reason I mentioned them is because they did play an important role. While they were partying, one of the girls decides to give them a call saying, "Come fuck our brains out," teasing them, and then leaves a message with her address. And we don't hear from them again, and then of course Ben breaks out and all hell breaks loose. And then randomly, after, there's been some death around the area from Ben killing them, not just the one guy, but also one of the other girls got pummeled to death. Well, then those two dudes show up. They're already plastered, but they break into the house. They open the door and they're like, "Whoa, it's time to party. Who's looking for penis delivery?" And they're just walking around this house that no one is there. There's shit thrown all over the place, and they're just joking around "Yeah, dude, they're probably upstairs waiting for us to come bone them. I'm gonna check upstairs, but you check downstairs just in case. We're gonna get super laid tonight." And they're just walking around this house drinking their beer. These are strangers, by the way. They'd never met apart from the 3 minutes they spent hanging out on the plane. And they break into this house with all the lights off. It looks like there's no signs of life, but it looks like there was some kind of struggle. And they're just wandering around aimlessly. One of the dudes goes into the girl's room. Well, multiple rooms, actually. And then he's just hanging out on her bed. Still, he has seen no signs of life in this house. They are actually just burglarizing this place. And he's just hanging out there, and then he looks at a picture that's on the nightstand. He's like, "Oh, it's a pet chimp. Weird." Puts it aside, and then, of course, Ben is there. And that's when he rips the dude's jaw out. And then he also kills the other guy who was still wandering around the house. And then he eventually saw all of the girls in the pool, passed out on a flotation device because they had been, floating there for so long they got exhausted and fell asleep there. And he's like, "Dude, I found the chicks." Mind you, in order to even get to that area to see the girls in the pool, he had to walk through a minefield of broken glass because Ben had busted through a glass door. Meaning, he walked through the broken glass, thought nothing of it, then saw them unconscious in the pool and was like, yeah, they're here, the girls. And then he gets killed by Ben. It's just so weird because, like, no matter how dumb, like, no matter how lobotomized or drunk you are, I don't think that would ever actually happen, which is why in this kind of movie, you have to suspend disbelief so hard. And I guess that maybe is, like, the big appeal, because it's very unapologetic with how stupid these characters are, and even the concept itself is so outrageously, like, over the top, like just a killer chimpanzee that just wants to kill for fun after contracting rabies. Like, it is wacky and over the top, but I had to mention that because I was sitting there stunned like, no way. No way we're watching this right now. And it's also really inconsistent with how strong Ben is. Like, I'm sure many of you have heard the stories of, like, chimpanzee attacks and how brutal it is and how strong they are. Like, the one chimpanzee that ripped the lady's face off and, you know, got shot 6 times and still didn't even go down. Like, it is incredible how strong these animals are. In this movie, they showcase that a little bit with Ben sometimes, but then other times, like on Lucy, there's like 4 scenes of him just like beating Lucy to death and she's totally fine. There's a scene where he breaks her wrist, like breaks her whole hand and wrist, and then in the next scene, it's fully healed for Lucy. She even picks up a shovel and hits him with it with no issue at all. So like sometimes he's extremely strong and then other times he's really weak. And there's like a scene where they like close a door in Ben's face and Ben is like trying to open the door, but one of the girls is able to like hold the door closed on him somehow. Like somehow she was able to overpower Ben. Like it's just sometimes they just nerfed him. Like he was really weak for some reason. Well, not for some reason, obviously to fit what the plot needed in that moment, but it was just very inconsistent there, which again, you're probably not even going to be thinking or caring about because this movie is just like so silly, and I feel like it has to be self-aware. I couldn't get like a full gauge on if this movie was self-aware or not, but I have to imagine that it is. Anyways though, there's no need to yap about it further. I don't think the movie's like good or great or anything like that, but it is entertaining. Like it is silly, it like unapologetically silly with how the film plays out in a lot of cases. So if you're just looking for like a really like, you know, simple, fun movie where a chimpanzee kills a bunch of people, that is exactly what you get with Primate. There's no bait and switch there. There's no false advertisement. That is exactly what you get. So yeah, I mean, that's really about it. So yeah.